If you council meetings and planning commissions, they have camera back there that takes a picture and they're like this on the screen. And all it would take is controls this to control that. Hey there. How are you? I'm doing all right.
Good. How are you doing? Hi, Mayor.
How are you?
Good. But, I checked all my stuff. Aaron told me they might have a workshop today, and I checked all my stuff Sunday night, looked at everything. And I guess they just notified us yesterday. Yeah, it's part of spring break.
I figured that I had missed something.
Yeah. Because I thought maybe there'd be, a tentative draft now, but I thought with everything going on. But I thought, okay. I guess I visited up in Oklahoma, and she called me a message, and I just called her on the way to work. I said, "Are we meeting tonight?" 'Cause I didn't check my emails last night.
I'm sure there was a calendar or something.
So first I heard about it's the end of March. She said, "I think we might do one."
No, I have a
It's
feature
okay as long as
that
I
I
know
put on
about it.
my phone that takes all
Seems fair.
spam and doesn't answer it, but when they leave a voicemail, I see it, I can read the voicemail
something new.
and delete it and report it as spam. So I never get called. I haven't had a spam call that I've had to answer. And it just goes to voicemail. Plus, anybody that does call me, you have to go. If it's in my, unless it's in my contacts list.
I didn't.
Is it food?
I don't know
I
where it
didn't
is.
know that and I ate.
Oh, I just have a
Work session, I guess it should be. I need to talk to Wes about time. I need to talk to Wes.
About that property.
He's for it and I'm not. I just can't go there. I can't undo what we did 2 years ago. Why are we doing
Well, I don't care about that one little bit. Because it was 4 years ago.
Or was it?
And it was July 5th, 2022.
I thought,
And
maybe I was
the argument was almost exclusively, this is already what we've been doing as a city. Let's just bring this in line with what we're doing. It was between the planning commission and the city council, there was less than 2 minutes of discussion
oh, interesting.
on the fractional. It wasn't that they sat down and had a big discussion and came up with, thank you.
Yeah, sure. We are in the room.
No, like I said, unless I can come up with something that convinces me that feeling that there's a problem, then no, I can't.
Well, if you come up with it, let me know, because at this point, I'm.
No, if it were just that property. Oh, bless them. Look at that.
I hand out last week.
Hello there.
Karen,
Not all that much. How about you?
it's bound. It's in the Bible. It's a real
I was guessing it was something like that because I had my phone in my hand and I was walking from my car to my door and it's like, Scott, and I went, oh, and before I
for
could
you and
get down,
one's for
poof,
Bricks.
it was, I went,
But you can steal from
something,
him,
it,
and it's fine.
it must be.
Shut up.
something-
Oh my gosh. Do you know how much he loves her?
Called Courtney.
Yeah, I had it out, sitting right next to all this. And then
No, I figured it was something like that.
And it may be, yeah, it's got 25. Oh, you know what? It's in here.
I think it's in here.
It is. So I actually didn't need it. Good job. Man, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Which one? Last one.
She's going, Sherry's going as well. So I did it, you have to be like delegate.
Well, I'm a delegate, and I went last night. For B, it was in Saratoga Springs, Sage Canyon, middle
What?
school. It was last night. Unless I'm rereading this something.
Well, my day's already done.
Trust me, I know.
And you're like, please don't call 911.
What have I done?
No.
I didn't think about that. So I think this I think you passed out.
She actually worked as well.
And then they could be like, what happened?
I'm like waking up and he's like putting a towel over me. He's like, hey, you passed out.
Well, he's running the county commission.
Yeah.
So you'd have staples in the back too.
There's 7.
Oh my gosh, what a fun 2 weeks that was.
But I agree with Brittany. After the 2 weeks, it looks really good. Yeah.
7. And there's 5 for CA, including,
Because I just gave them your full before you came in.
the county audit.
I'm sure you do. I wish somebody would put my parents on hospice.
taking my handicap pass when I had the food. So like, maybe it's on the scooter.
Are we waiting for Aaron?
You can just reach up and go like this during the meeting. I've already done it. I already told somebody that I think it'll be reasonably short tonight. So if it isn't, I have already drank these. If we were trying to really discuss through all of the questions that we had, that would be one thing. But this is primarily a presentation of information. And then with our one-on-one meetings or individual meetings, we can actually dig in and ask questions. So if there's something we don't understand, absolutely now's the time to make sure we're clear about it. But
Oh, I know. Well, I told my husband, I was like, when you said that, think of the positives here. I'm going to save money on Botox now, because apparently I don't need it. Yeah. I just think it's funny. No, I didn't know. Pickleball games. Just so you know. What are we thinking here, guys? What are we thinking for budget? What should we throw in there?
Let's discuss the meeting before. Okay, let's do this. But you're gonna do it.
Because you could say, we could go to this state, and we can put it.
I'm gonna do this with the straight face.
And just say, phrase it out. And it's only
With what you know.
whatever level the exercise is. There is a council who's voted to not have a study with her. We gotta make it more.
On the state level, you can contact.
So, but then everybody is.
Yeah.
And when you take, yes, ma'am.
These are warm.
Lesson learned, account for how much time it takes to print this really big document. Okay, welcome both of you to our work session, budget work session tonight. We will start out with an invocation by Councilmember Courtney, and then Dr. Smith will do our pledge.
God our Father, as we gather here today, we're thankful for our many blessings. And we pray that you give the gifts of strength and hope, especially to those living in combat areas. As we anticipate a season with little surface water, we ask that you bless us with rain and cooler temperatures. More than that, though, we ask you to bless us with wisdom and empathy. Wisdom to use our limited resources well, and empathy to recognize and honor our connection to those for whom not enough, whether it be clean water or food or shelter, is simply another way of seeing life. Please bless them, Lord. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just a reminder that we are committed to civility and respect and ask everyone to act and speak accordingly. That being said, Erin, is this just your show?
Jay and I are tag teaming this
Perfect.
show, so we're going to get going if you
Let's
guys
do
are
it.
ready. So we have 45 slides.
Let me, quick question. Erin,
Yes.
would you like to get through your presentation? Do you prefer questions as we go on this one? What's
On
your
this one,
preference?
I'd say let's do more informal questions as we go is totally appropriate. And Mayor and Council, I know that obviously I just handed you the very warm budget. And so obviously you haven't had time to go through it and do a deep dive. So tonight is just intended to give you a high level overview of some things to look for in the budget. We have doodle polls out that I think I've got almost everybody to respond to get one-on-one meetings set up with each of you. So you'll each meet with Jay and I to kind of go through the budget, ask any questions you have at that point right after you've had some more time to digest. And there's a few specific areas that we want your feedback on, and that we will get to those. I've given you a copy of the budget itself as well as a copy of the presentation. For the past couple of years, essentially, our presentation kind of serves as our initial budget memo. So it'll give you a highlight. We'll go over high-level revenues and expenditures, use of fund balance, things like that. But yes, if questions pop up for you as you go, great. If not, and you need some time to dive into the budget, that's just fine. And we anticipate having some meetings with you all to get those questions answered for you. With that being said, here we go. So first, I wanted to say thank you. I know we've deviated from our initial budget schedule. We're, I can't remember, a couple weeks or more behind at this point. So thank you for being flexible, and thank you for being willing to kind of compress the timeline with everything we've got going on with staff right now. I also wanted to say thank you. So just so you're all aware, in talking with the mayor, we decided David is back on a part-time basis at this point, but he wasn't quite back as we were getting the budget going, getting it ready to present to you. And so we wanted somebody, Jay and I have been spending a lot of time in it, but we wanted somebody with a finance eye to take a look at it. So we actually hired an outside person. Her name is Christy Bayless, and she worked with David at Vineyard City, so she's familiar with the way that he does his budget spreadsheets. And so she spent some time with us over the past couple of weeks and caught some things for us, which was really great. So we did that, and then Jay and I have spent a lot of time in it, so I appreciate all of Jay's efforts stepping up and helping us with the budget. So I just wanted to say thank you to all involved in this process. All right, a few points that I wanted to get on that are, apparently gravity took hold of our chairs. Some legislative things that kind of give some context to the budget, and I want you to keep in mind as we start to go through. So for many years, we've been talking about the legislature might do something with the road fee. They finally did after many years of almost getting there. And what they ended up doing is they are allowing cities to do road fees, but they've put a lot more parameters around them than previously existed. So our road fee fingers crossed is good. But we do need to update our study to make sure that we come into compliance with the current regulations. So we've got, I think it's over a year to get that done, but we're underway with that right now. We are anticipating that happening. So Chris and I are working on getting that going at this point. Public safety fee. I don't need any more, so just for staff if they want to. Public safety fee. So that was another one that was a bit questionable. And the legislature did say in that same road fee bill that we can have a public safety fee, but they were pretty limited. They said that it can only happen in smaller cities if you've already adopted it by January of this year and you have to be paying another entity. It can't be like if Highland City had its own fire police department, we can't collect a public safety fee. It has to be that we are paying somebody else for this. So Lone Peak counts in that criteria. So we are good. We do have to, the council has to reaffirm it every 3 years. So we'll see if we want to just take care of that this year for the next 3 years. But that is good to go, which is nice to kind of have that relief.
Did the legislature put any parameters on increases?
Interesting question. They were mute on the idea of an increase. So it depends on if we want to dare do it or not, honestly. It doesn't say that you can't, but it does not say that you can. It just says that you have to reaffirm the fee every 3 years.
The obvious potential would be that they would say we have to do truth in taxation.
Yes.
With the fee the same as we do with property tax, which actually kind of makes sense. So anyway.
Spoiler alert, staff is not recommending a public safety fee increase this year. So we'll get to this in detail, but because of the fire formula change in particular, while we do have an increase in our public safety costs, it still stays right about within that kind of goal parameter we sent of 75% of our sales and property tax is going to public safety. But we don't feel like we need to raise the fee in order to keep that balance.
So let me just ask, do we need to do the reevaluation then, or reaffirmation this year?
I don't think it's necessary. It just says every 3 years, but we'll probably do it this year just so that we're kind of starting off on the right foot that way. Okay. So I think it would be a good idea. The last legislative change that might pertain to us, is a property tax increase. So as we've been talking, that might be a possibility for the library, and that is something that is currently in the budget. And that's one of those questions that I need final direction from council on. So I do have a property tax increase included in the library, or for the library. If council chooses to go forward with that, there was a legislative change this year that requires some additional information that you have to share with the public if you are going to consider doing a truth in taxation. So honestly, I haven't gotten into all of the details on exactly what that looks like yet, but it will be something we'll be very careful on because a lot of cities had troubles with that last year. So.
Have you heard anything about legislation coming back next session addressing how much of an increase you can have in property tax in a year?
The league has talked about there's some conversations going on of wanting to do that, but I haven't heard specifics. I don't know if Kim or anybody else has more details on that.
I've heard there will be.
There were, but it did not pass.
Yeah, and that's what
There
I
was a
heard.
lot of opposition, and I don't think they'll be broaching it anytime soon.
There was general consternation about property taxes at the state, especially in relation to school districts. And cities, unfortunately, kind of seem to get lumped in with that. But yeah, Kim and Ron are right. Nothing passed at this point. So.
Well, and the argument is that it punishes those cities like us who have not had a property tax in umpteen years, which it may need to be more than 5% when it does happen. So you don't want to punish a city for making efficiencies and doing everything they can to avoid it. And then all of a sudden it is required, and there will be a point where it's required. Where we can't do what's needed for the city. So I think that argument's pretty strong, and I don't see that changing.
I could see them trying to do more. This is the one that actually got passed, is some more restrictions on if you're considering a property tax increase, what information you have to share with the public. But that's the only one that did pass to my knowledge.
And is that sharing in the time frame of the truth and taxation, or is it an earlier?
It's almost like you have to create, again, this was I'm not 100% sure what passed, but during truth and taxation, you almost have to create like a separate document that says, if we don't do this, these are the impacts to our budget, kind of a thing. But
Right, you
it-
really have
not
to have a
something we have to
budget.
do right now.
You have to have a budget with it and a budget without, and you publish
Yes.
both of those budgets.
And that was my understanding, so. That's what, we'll make sure to, if council chooses to move forward that route, we'll make sure that we really understand that and cross our I's and, no, cross our T's and dot our I's on that one. Cross our, yes. In case you guys don't know, Jay and Chris have a competition going on for dad jokes, who can tell the most. And I might have left some Easter egg Jay-isms in the PowerPoint that you can see if you can find. So, all right.
So Aaron, let me ask a question.
Yeah.
So you said there's additional requirements and things. Are we going to get those shared with us at some point?
We will, and it's nothing that needs to be shared at this point in the budget process. It's further along the road, but it's just more information. Those of you who have been around enough and know proper truth and taxation, right? It's very specific what information you have to share. It goes on. It used to go in the newspaper, right? That's not a thing anymore. Now it goes a little postcard that we all get in the mail, right? But then there's additional information that you have to share come August when you hold the public hearing to consider truth and taxation. Like there's an extra document that you have to produce that says, here's what the impact would be without the tax increase, and here's what the impact would be with the tax increase. So we'll get that all prepared and make sure that we're ready for that if council chooses to pursue it. All right. Okay, now that we've kind of talked high level, let's dive in high level to the fund summary. So this is one of the beginning pages of your budget document. And those of you who've been around for a while recognize this, but the columns essentially show, okay, so where are we at the beginning of this fiscal year? What is our current fund balance? And then we go through and look, okay, what is the revenue for each of those funds within the city? What are the budgeted expenditures? And that doesn't include what we budget to, especially for our enterprise funds, what we budget to put away for future capital uses. And then I give you the net then we give you the net revenue. So, and then you can see, okay, for some of those funds, it is in the budget to use prior year fund balance in each of those funds. And then it'll show you at the end what we will, if all of those columns stay the same, what we would end our fund balance with. So high level, we have about $27,000 in our fund, 27 million in fund balance. This year, the budget, 33 million in revenue, 31, and this is for all funds, right? So general fund is about half of all of this. And then we would end the fiscal year with $25 million in fund balance. You'll see some yellow columns, yellow cells on this page and throughout your document. I purposely left them yellow because those are things we're either currently still working on, or those are specific questions I need council's direction on as to whether we want to do it or not, whether we want to fund something or not. And so they're left yellow to kind of draw your attention to them and let you know that we need some direction or we're still working on it. Let's talk about those funds that we are recommending using fund balance for, what those things would be. So in the general fund, there are two things. Alpine Highway Fence, this would be the third year, isn't it, Jay?
It's third year.
It's our it would be our third and last year for the Alpine Highway Fence program. And so the council 3 years ago said up to $80,000 per year. And so this would be the last year to do that unless the council wanted to make a change there.
We had about 8 people take advantage of the program last year, and we've had 1 person take advantage of it this year.
So do we have leftover from the 2 years prior?
We do, but the direction from council at the time was only 80 per year. It wasn't any kind of a rollover type of a thing. We could change that if we want.
Okay, and that extra just rolled over into our fund balance?
Into the fund balance,
Okay.
yeah.
So we had 8, we did it the first year, and then I saw a fence go up recently. But we actually had 1 year when hardly anybody did anything, or they haven't done it this year.
Yeah, this year is that year where we just very late in the year, we finally have gotten someone interested in taking advantage of this. So
So how much of the $240,000 have we spent?
off the top of my head, I
Because it was
can
$240,000 for 3 years.
I can get that to you in a couple minutes. I just need to look it up on the
Okay.
network.
So if there's
would
only
say
been
it's
9
probably-
take advantage of it, it seemed like we should have some money left.
Yeah, there's absolutely money left in the like in our general fund balance, but when council originally passed it, they said 80 per year, not necessarily 240, and it would roll over each year. But we absolutely can, like if everyone came in, because I would bet it's less than 100,000, right? That has been taken advantage of on this program. So if council wanted to and directed us to, we could make that change and reimburse more people if they wanted to take advantage.
Okay.
The other recommended use of fund balance, so this goes to what was actually the top council priority in our budget retreat, is we'll call it the quote unquote payback to the library of the motor vehicle revenue. There was a period of 10 years where the city did not realize that because we had two separate property taxes, one for the general and one for the library. The library is supposed to get a portion of our motor vehicle tax revenue, and there was a period of 10 years where that wasn't happening. It was just going to the general fund. So when you look back for those 10 years, we're estimating that it was about $417,000 that the general fund collected that really should have gone to the library fund during that time. And so the top priority coming out of the council retreat was to send that money to the library fund. And what it could do is create a sort of endowment for the library where they could use the interest from that to help pay their ongoing expenses. You don't really want to pay ongoing expenses with that money if you can avoid it because it's one time.
That 417 number that you were talking about, it was actually higher than that, yes, because we repaid some of it this last year?
You're
or
right,
are we
so-
double repaying?
Nope, you're right. This is the remainder of
Okay.
what the general fund would owe, but it was higher.
And why did it go to the general fund instead of directly back to the library?
We
Is
really
there-
the staff at the time did not know it was supposed to go to the library. So it was actually a former Councilmember and Dennis that helped us realize our error and get us, that's when we actually set up the library fund separate than the general fund.
And there were some other things in the past, I can't remember specific things where they weren't paid that we had to correct too. And so, as we've talked about the library fund, so, but with an endowment, they could just spend the interest.
And it would be up to council how you want to deal with that money, right? Our recommendation as staff would be to use it as an endowment where they just try to just spend the interest and leave the endowment portion there so that, because if you start dipping into the endowment, the interest goes down and then you don't have money in the future, ultimately.
So-
But there's nothing that could stop a future council from using it for a capital project per se or something else.
But it's a general fund reserve for them. I mean, we don't make our other general funds endowments. I'm just
No.
curious how that works.
I'm using the term endowment as if it is an endowment, but it really wouldn't be. Essentially, it would just go into their fund balance, just like we have a fund balance in all of the other funds. And so, you could treat it like an endowment where you just use the interest and leave the principal, that's the word, right? Principal there. Or if council directs, you can use it for other purposes, certainly. It was just an idea that staff had and how we drafted the budget at this point.
What if you had it into the reserve and said you can spend 10% of it every year?
Yep.
I mean, it would last quite a while.
It would last quite a while
Yeah.
if you wanted to do it that way.
I'm just wondering, because interest rates go up and down, and I just, okay.
No, absolutely. Either one are viable. And depending on how much you're getting on interest, it might not be enough, really. You know, you might need to spend more than the interest ultimately. So.
Before we move on to the next item for the Alpine Highway fence, to answer your question, Councilman Smith, we have spent a total or reimbursed a total of $63,000 up to this point. So that counts one and almost two complete cycles.
So there's a lot of money still there.
Yeah.
And I think there's interest again coming. So, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it would be nice for
Now, remind me,
people
that
to
was
take.
50% is what we reimburse. of the cost?
It's a linear foot
Oh, okay.
amount.
Or
So if they got
$50
it cheaper,
linear
then,
foot or
okay,
something.
okay.
$50 per linear foot.
It was 50 per linear
Okay.
foot or close
Yeah.
to that.
Okay.
That's the formula we're using, so.
Right. It'd be nice to get more people to participate because the rest of the fence looks horrible.
And each January, Jay sent out a letter to them encouraging them and reminding them of the program. So we're hoping,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
hoping they take advantage. All right. So those are the two uses of fund balance where staff's recommending currently in the general fund. What that would do, it would still leave about $4.2 million in our general fund balance, which would be, let's call it 29% of, if you remember, there's a rule set by the state where you have to be between 5 and 35% of your prior year revenues in fund balance. And so that would leave us at 29%, which would meet our compliance needs there. It also, the fund, when you look at the general fund, we are balanced. We have about $330,000 of net revenue in the general fund when you look over all of the revenues to expenses or expenses to revenues. What kind of the target that staff set as we were preparing the budget is we needed it to stay at least above the $263,000. So that is the amount that will be the payout from Lone Peak of the excess fund balance that's coming back to Alpine City and Highland City. Highland City's is a greater amount because we put in more, but that is how much will come back from Lone Peak from a excess fund balance as a part of the fire formula rework. Okay, let's talk about some other funds. So, Jay, why don't you talk about cemetery fund?
So we had a discussion about a month and a half ago in city council meeting about, it was the presentation by Zions Bank with Aaron Sanborn, talking about the study that we're currently doing on the cemetery perpetual fund. Based on direction from the council, staff has developed a plan going forward. We plan to bring that to you a week from today at our regular scheduled council meeting to make some decisions there. As of right now, we do not plan on using any cemetery fund balance. We have a few things that we need to check, including some revenues that this year we started separating out openings and closings from plot sales. We've normally just put those together in the same line. We separated those out around November, but it looks like based off of Stephanie's records and what we have in Cassell, that has not been properly sorted out. And so what you are seeing in your budget document as far as mid-year actuals were drastically lower than what we anticipated according to Cassell. However, according to Stephanie's records, we are on track for what our projections were. So they're working those out. We need to come to a final decision on increases for plot sale price that was bantered about last time, as well as decisions regarding transfers and sellbacks of plots. Staff has developed what we believe, based off of preferences that were voiced at the last meeting by council members. We feel like we know where we can go on some things regarding like the sale price, but as far as the sellbacks and the transfers, we'd like some more direction. We have our professional guidance, if you will, but we'd like to put that before you next week and see what you have to say about it. So.
Will next week include a potential rise in the plots cost?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
So all in all, cemetery fund is still a little bit in flux. And so you'll see some yellow in there as we kind of work to true things up a little bit more and get right to make sure, you know, what what, if anything, can we transfer to the general fund this year? What can we spend on the veterans wall? Things of that nature. So more coming.
According to the model, I think we plan on paying it back over 4 years. So there's that. And then the amount of revenue that we can expect for burial sale or plot sales would also obviously be affected by the final amount that the council approves for an increase in sale price as recommended by Zions Bank.
All right. When you look at the parks tax fund, so that's that special sales tax that we collect that council's previously said take one park per year and do some improvements to it. We missed a year with honestly focusing on Highland Family Park and the parks maintenance building and other things, and so we recommended using an extra year's worth of revenue to go ahead and improve another park this year.
And this is our park tax.
Yeah, the park
This is
tax.
the one that it was passed unanimously. Okay, good.
Pretty strongly by residents, it seems like,
Right.
in the election. The next is our building and development fund. So this has been a hot topic for a few years since we created this fund. We do anticipate using about $260,000 in fund balance. And if you remember, that's the fund that grew very large during the boom of Ridgeview, and we've been slowly eating away at it. We talked about this at the retreat, but staff's made an effort to pull out employees who are spending less time in building and development now and put them in their other funds, right? Whether we're talking general fund or utility funds, to lower the ongoing costs in that fund. But even then, we are still anticipating spending about $260,000 of fund balance. And this is a fairly new fund, right? We're probably 4 years old, maybe 3 years old at this point with this fund. But really, that's kind of what we expected is, especially during a boom like Ridgeview, where you're getting a lot of revenue, you'll get a lot in, and then you start slowly spending it over the year because you get a lot of revenue up front when we're talking about all of the planning fees that they have to pay for subdivisions and everything like that. You get a lot of that up front, but then you slowly use it over the next few years, right? It takes 5 years or so to build all of the homes in Ridgeview, right? And so the building department continues to have those costs much longer than when a lot of the costs were first paid to the city, if that makes sense. So we do expect this, but it is one that in about 2 years, if this trend continues, we would go in the red. And so we would either have to start supplementing from the general fund or pull more employees out of that or make some other decisions that way. Or look at increasing revenues in terms of increasing costs that we charge to builders and developers. All right. Parks Capital. So that is the fund that we collect. Most of what comes in here is impact fees, though we do some transfers from the general fund as well. And we do plan to spend $560,000 in prior year fund balance. The bulk of that is going towards paying our bond payment, and we only have 2 more payments on that. So this next fiscal year and then the final. And it's a big balloon payment. It's like $900,000 in the final year. But so most of the fund balance is to pay that, as well as things that scored highly at the budget retreat was to start doing something in Beacon Hills, right? Probably a pavilion, adding that to Beacon Hills. And so staff has budgeted for that in the Parks Capital Fund.
So Aaron, how much, I know we have the balloon payment at the end of the park bond, but how much do you have to pay in 27?
In fiscal year 27.
Is that the balloon one, or because we?
No,
Yeah,
balloon
because
one is
we'll
in
have a
fiscal year
payment this year,
28.
which is in 27.
Oh, shoot.
So it'll be 28, the balloon one.
Yes. Hold on. Did I pull up the budget? I forgot to do that.
I'm just wondering how much of that 560 goes into bond.
Is the payment. 530,000, according to Jay. He looked it up for me real quick.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, absolutely.
So we have 30,000 to spend on a pavilion.
from the fund balance that we're spending on other things. We are still collecting some impact fees, and so that's helping to pay for some of the other projects that are in the Parks Capital Fund as well. Okay. There's the budget. Okay. Let's see, roads capital. And so this is one, again, where we do get a lot, we do a lot of transfer from the general fund, and then we are still collecting impact fees, but as you know, we are currently in the process of, or about to start the process of doing an impact fee study to relook, now that we've got the general plan updated, to look and see, is there anything else from our transportation standpoint that we left to spend impact fee money on? So ongoing, we've got budgeted to use, we are able to, state law does allow us to use impact fees to do an impact fee study. So essentially that 50,000 is from prior year impact fees, looking at getting that study complete. Building capital, the use of fund balance there is to pay the building, the building bonds. And again, is that the last?
Is that paid up in 27 then? Isn't that paid the year before?
I think it is. And
So
I should have
this will
pulled
be
that
the
up.
final payment. Is there a balloon one?
I think the balloon was just on the parks, not on the building bond one as well. But I will find that out for you for sure.
I was thinking it was calendar year 27, that it was in September maybe that the final payment was, which would be fiscal year
I
28.
thought one bond was paid in fiscal year 27, which would be in
could be.
September, and one's paid in 28. So fiscal 27 would be the September.
This
I
is
think
right.
so.
Yeah.
Jay's going to double check for us just to make sure that he'll find the schedule for us.
Year. Oh, sorry. 422,000 this year. It's going down. So it's not ballooning at the end.
Okay.
But I'll look it up in the
Yeah,
the audit.
because they're pretty much done
Tells
by
us
fiscal year
what it
28.
is.
But,
That's where I found the data before.
okay.
Oh, I think I left the audit on my desk. All right. Okay. Let's talk about our utility funds. So in the sewer fund, we do show using fund balance, and that is for capital projects, most that were previously planned. So the first one is the CIPP lining projects that we've done every year for a number of years. And then the other use of fund balance is for the security at the city facilities that was prioritized by council. So that would be to upgrade the shed at the Greens lift station. And good heavens, I'm blanking on the other one, Chris. The fencing at Pheasant Hollow lift station. So just making our physical facilities more secure. In the storm drain fund, the fund balance is for things in our capital improvement project, including so the vac truck that council approved recently. It'll produce a lot of stuff that we then have to go lay out to dry out for a little while before we can haul it off to the dump. And so the plan for that money is to create some drying beds, or for some of that money, I should say, is to create some drying beds for all of those cleanouts that we can't wait to get doing. So, and then in the culinary water fund, about $165,000. And those go towards, again, it's priorities that council gave us at the budget retreat. So it's upgrading the few lines that we have out there that are 4-inch lines, as well as doing our fire hydrant replacements on our older fire hydrants to get those so that they can have proper pressure, as well as, again, the security issues. There are 2 wells that are unfenced, so it would be adding those fencing.
And Aaron, just to make sure that I understand correctly, when you talk about updating the hydrants,
Yes.
it isn't, my understanding was that it is not so much that we can have proper pressure at the hydrants with the new ones, but that there is like a third line that we can attach to the newer hydrants
Yes.
and therefore pull more
You're right.
water out. Is
And
that-
I'm sorry, it's more about the flow, the amount of water, right, Chief
Yeah,
Patton?
volume. That's what your bigger line going into with a hydrant that has a bigger outlet.
Okay, thank you.
So we go from 4-inch to what? 6 or 8? What are the others?
It will be an 8.
An 8, okay.
We'll double the size.
Yeah.
More than.
You're right, from a volume standpoint, right, because of how physics works. I will say in all of our funds, in all of our utility funds, when we look at using fund balance, it still keeps our funds. The target goal we have is between 270 and 360 days of cash on hand, right? A year's worth of ongoing expenses in our fund balance. The use of these fund balances still puts us in that range. I talked about it earlier, we're starting with road impact fees, but really it's time to hit all of our utility funds. And what you do first is you hit your impact fees, and then you carry that over, and eventually you do utility rate studies to make sure that you are charging the proper amount to your residents. And in looking at our funds, it's time to do each of those. We're in a healthy balance, but we want to make sure that we're charging the proper amount, certainly.
So Aaron, this may not be the right time, but have we included any money anywhere if we end up having to buy water from?
Yes, I didn't put that in here because we didn't have to use fund balance for it, but I might be, so one of the priorities council gave us is buy additional water shares in PI. Is that what you're meaning?
Well, that, and when we run out of water this year, if we have to buy water from another city or another entity.
Ultimately, tell me if I'm wrong, Chris, but we don't have the ability to buy water. What we have the ability to do is pump more water from our PI wells, essentially, because we are going to run out of surface water. And we tend to every year, and then you use well water to help supplement, but we just anticipate having to do that earlier. And we have included extra power and pumping costs in our PI fund because we think that'll happen. It's good when I get some public works stuff right. So Chris has trained me well.
On that capital improvement fund, that the final bond payment for the building is in fiscal year 28. So following this year, we have one left.
Is Parks in 29 then, or is it in 25?
No, they should be done by 28, all of them.
We'll double check those and get that to you.
I've never heard fiscal 29.
Okay.
So it's close.
We'll keep looking and make sure to get you the right that information.
Okay.
Bond schedules. Okay. Let's talk about revenue now. So we've talked a lot about expenses, high-level revenue. So sales tax, we budgeted for a 3% increase from where we're anticipating ending this year. We have historically budgeted a bit more conservatively than that. In looking at our historical data, though, the last time we did not hit at least 3% growth from year over year was back in 2011. And I know the economy is not great and gas prices are high and there's a war and everything, but I don't think that we're to 2011 levels. And so I felt that 3% was an appropriate amount to budget as an increase.
What's the latest on the our own zip code? Because that'll impact this. I haven't heard the latest on that. Have you, Scott?
Brittany, Mayor.
I think it's past committee. They asked for some more documentation last week, but I think that wouldn't take effect for, I think it was January 2020. Was it 2028?
It was a while out.
It
will take a minute.
I would assume so. I just wondered. Okay.
But it's moving, and they're asking for more information.
Well,
Good.
and Congress is back in session, so that's good.
That's good.
Aaron, with the sales tax, I'm assuming that's something that we have a pretty good handle on what the seasonality on that is, and so we can watch it
Yes.
over time. And if 6 months in, it looks like we're actually going to be below that 3%, we can start taking action then. Is that?
Yep, we can start cutting back or plan to, maybe we need to, I mean, fund balance is there for a reason, right?
Yep.
And so maybe we need to use a little bit of fund balance that year, or if we need to make some cuts that way. But yes, we do track it month to month, though I will say that can vary a lot. And so we look at more in almost quarter increments as kind of, you can see more of a trend that way.
On the growth side, we do have Highland Mains coming online,
Yes.
which should boost that. So maybe this 3% is still conservative.
That's what I'm trying to convince, and I'm sure
Yeah.
David wants to argue with me when he sees these numbers, but
He's so conservative, which is good. Don't-
he's a
don't get me
finance
wrong.
guy and that he's supposed to be. So, but I'll say Christy, we arm wrestled Christy into agreeing with us, so I feel good about it.
So,
Sorry,
Aaron,
go ahead.
and sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
So basically, for the last 15 years, our sales tax increase has always been over 3%.
Yes.
And I remember, I think the start of COVID, we just was dire predictions, and I think we generated $500,000 more than budgeted. But we tend to do that every year, not 500,000, but more. So I think 3% is still conservative.
So there you go.
Yeah.
David will tell me I'm being aggressive, and Scott will tell me I'm being conservative.
Right.
So that's got to be. Okay. 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 All right. I'm going to look at one more time. All right. But one more check, and then we'll have those numbers for you, I think. Property tax increasing at 3%. While our building is slowing, and you'll see that in our impact fees and our building permit fees. As you all know, it takes property tax maybe a year or more to catch up, right? And so we still felt that a 3% growth was appropriate for all of those homes that were built over the past year or so and haven't hit our property tax rolls yet, but will this year. Good news on garbage fees and utility fees. So at this point, they are proposed to stay the same. So Jay does a pretty in-depth model when we look at our garbage fees to look at the increases that we got from North Point this year, as well as the increase that Waste Management is projecting. And while every year we try to hit about net revenue, sometimes we're a little off or a little high. And so as we account for those increases, we do feel like we can keep garbage fees where they are and not do any increases to people this year and still break even or have a little bit of net revenue there. And then utility fees, like I said, nothing's proposed right now, but those rate studies are going to be coming over the next year, I would say. All right, continuing on with revenue. So when you look at interest income throughout the document, we forecasted it slightly lower than where we anticipate we're ending this year, trying to be a little conservative with rates. In addition, we do look to be, when you look at the mid-year actuals, they are lower than if you were just to take that and double it to get to what our budget is. Though I do think those are slightly artificially lower, just with David being out. It's a very manual process to account for the interest into each fund, and I don't think that's happened in a little bit. And so that number is actually slightly artificially low, but we did feel like we should project down a little bit in our interest income.
I know that with the interest income, last year David changed things so that he was tying to the federal funds rate and the projected
Yes.
federal. Are we using that same process this year? Or
I couldn't
how?
quite figure out that process, unfortunately, so I did my best.
Okay.
And the other thing that's not accounted for, I don't believe, is the Morton money as well. So if you remember 6 months ago or so, council split off and half of our fund balance is in PTIF and half is in Morton. And the Morton money for the last little bit is not accounted for in our actuals. So that's why they look a little bit lower. Impact fees, like I said, we're working on some, we need to start doing our every 5 years, so studies on all of those. But we are expecting a slowdown as we continue to see Ridgeview almost being built out, and then we don't have any other large developments. We have little ones here and there that are continuing, but we do continue to expect to see that slowdown there, both in impact fees and revenue, or building permit revenue. All right. Ready to move on to some expense highlights? So these, I wanted to hit personnel first because, as we all know, well, outside of our, I would say our capital funds and our utility funds, personnel is a large part of the city's budget. So you'll see a lot of line items, right, from when you look year over year that might go up, might go down in each department. And some of that movement is, again, like we talked about in the beginning, us moving people out of the building fund, looking at them, seeing how they spend their time, and moving them into the appropriate funds. So we have budgeted 4% increase for staff right now. We're working on our salary study to see where we're at in comparison with our neighbors, and looking at that. But you won't necessarily see a 4% year over year in each line item, and it's because we are moving people around into the appropriate funds, trying to make sure that that is accurate to how we are spending our time. Other thing to note, so we have a 9% increase budgeted for medical benefit increases. So when our broker originally came back, our health insurance wanted to do a 12% increase. We worked with our broker and negotiated down to a 9% increase, and so that is in the budget for as far as medical benefit increases go.
Does each municipality negotiate this on their own, or is there any coalition that can be put together to have a little strength in numbers by having more cities involved? Because 9%, and I appreciate the fact that it went down from 12, but 9 is very high.
I agree with you, Ron, except we hear from our broker that 9 is the lowest they've seen this year.
Central Utah's budgeted a lot higher than that.
Interesting.
It's just,
Wow.
It's appalling. I will say year over year, it's been in the 10 range, right, at least for the past few years, and it's very frustrating. Yeah. I agree.
I think 9/11, Central Utah 9/11 has 14% in their budget for this year.
Ron, I've worked for a city where they put together a coalition for those, strength in numbers. It's difficult. You don't want to be the biggest city in the coalition. And usually what you end up getting is, okay, we're Highland, but we'll get like a Genola or something like that wants to group with us because they've got 6 people that, it's something we could look at, but there are some...
I will say interesting case study on it. So Alpine is on their own, and Highland joins with Lone Peak. So we have a 9% increase. Alpine has a 7% increase. So it's not working for that. I think it has to do more with both Highland and largely Lone Peak have a younger population who have children, who are having children, and children are expensive when it comes to medical things.
So that's kind of what EMI originally was, Educators Mutual, that it wasn't based on the size of the district. It was based on each teacher, or not even the number of teachers, but the teachers throughout the state of Utah originally. Now they've gone nationwide.
Oh, wow.
But they started out with all the teachers kicking in, not necessarily districts, but I mean, I don't know how to explain that, but that's how it was. Yeah. And that brought down educators' premiums. A great deal. Yeah. So I don't know if it's based on how big the city can be, if that is, but it just how many employees kick in.
Yeah.
Based on employees.
And what they're using, because last year, the increase was more like 12 or 13, 14%. I don't remember the exact number. And they told us, well, you used the ER a lot and you had a lot of babies this year, when we talked a couple of years ago. And so that caused higher rates for us. So it seems to come, at least in our experience, it's usage, right? How much are people actually using their health insurance? And this year we did make a concerted effort to educate people about when to use the ER and when not to, right? When to use Instacare or telehealth or something like that. And it came in lower, so hopefully that did work.
So I get frustrated with the cost of health and things because as primary care physicians, I'm not seeing big jumps in my salary. But a lot of it's going into kind of innovation, hospitals. And, there's a lot of niche medications now that treats a lot of things. For example, I had a patient come in the other day and they were trying to get some funding because they spend $7,000 a month on their child who has cystic fibrosis. Well, it's amazing because we didn't used to have treatments for cystic fibrosis. So a lot of them are in these niche kind of drugs and innovations, but it's unfortunate because it is very expensive. And I think it pushes up premiums. I'm not justifying what insurance companies do because they all make lots of money. And I'm sorry. But at the same time, I think encouraging our employees to use like urgent cares, and I'll say my conflict of interest because we run some urgent cares, but at the same time, it's a lot cheaper than going to the emergency room. Because I promise you, when you go to the emergency room, you breathe twice and they charge you $2,000. And so you can go to an urgent care for a fraction of that. And most of the time get most of the same services for, minor things. And there was an interesting thing that happened. At one time, Medicaid didn't have any co-pays. And when they didn't have that, everybody went to the emergency room with Medicaid. When they put a small copay on, it made a big difference on utilization. So, sometimes having to pay that little extra out of your own pocket kind of incentivizes people to look for cheaper care, which just makes sense. So, thinking about those things, which I'm sure you have done.
Well, and it's the same reason, probably it's been like 8 years or so ago, Highland used to cover 100% of the medical benefit premiums, and now the city covers 95% and the employees cover 5%, so that we have a little bit of skin in the game, so to say, right? Like, so the employees have to pay for a portion of their premiums as well under that same idea.
I think that, Instacare is really good about saying, at least they have been with me, we can't handle this.
Yeah.
You've got to go to the hospital or
Right.
whatever. So,
but it's always better to go there first, right? As long as it's not life-threatening, of course, right? But so we use Select Health is the insurance company, and they even still have a free nurse line, and they do telehealth where it's if the telehealth doctor can't help you, they don't charge you actually. So we really encouraged our employees to do that. And then, you've got your Instacare or other options. But we do a quarterly staff meeting, and we did some education for our employees then. So hoping it seems to have helped at least. All right. Continuing on with personnel, I wanted to highlight for you and make it very clear the personnel changes that are in the budget right now that staff is proposing. So all of these come from council priorities that we discussed either at the retreat or some follow-up conversations. The first is a conversion from a part-time to a full-time position. So it's taking our code compliance officer and making it a full-time planning tech position. And you know what? I'm not going to go into super depth on each of these because it'll come in just a minute. 2 changes in the library. First, to again transition one of our managers, our collection development manager, to a full-time position, and to add an additional library assistant. And that's to keep up with the library consortium that everybody loves. And then 2 intern seasonal positions that we discussed. First would be a scanner to help Stephanie digitize our records that are not quite there yet. And then the second would be to have a management intern in the city administrator's office.
So what do you mean by interns?
Let me get to that. Is that okay? I'm going to talk to you in
Sure.
depth a little bit about each
About those,
position.
okay.
So planning tech, again, transferring code compliance to a full-time position. So they would still do code compliance. In addition, they would help with a lot of the day-to-day tasks that Rob is currently doing in the planning department. So fence permits, sign permits, answering questions about what are my setbacks, what can I build on my lot. And the thing that we've talked about recently that we would really like some help on is to have this person review all of our building permits from a planning perspective and make sure that we're getting setbacks correct and things of that nature so that we don't accidentally permit things that may meet building code but don't meet zoning code.
What kind of a background are you looking for that person?
We are thinking entry level, like right out of school, is kind of the hope that we're getting, or somebody who's worked in a city for a little bit in a planning department, so that they have some knowledge about zoning and setbacks and code. But entry level with some prior experience or education.
Someone with an urban planning degree,
Would
kind of
be
like
ideal.
basically like Annie we had a year ago.
Oh.
She was our code compliance officer, but she was graduating from BYU in urban planning. Really great skill set for this. It'd be helpful to relieve some pressure on Rob, where he can handle more upper level or higher projects and initiatives, whereas this person can help with fence permits and answer just kind of day-to-day, more basic planning questions that Rob can obviously handle, but it's probably not the best use of his time.
Do we have an increase in higher level initiatives and projects that Rob needs to work on?
More how quickly do you want him to get to things? And this is something I still owe you, council, and I'm hoping to get it either late April or early May to you. If you remember the list of things that Planning Commission was interested in us pursuing and the list of things that you've given us that I need to get to you to help me prioritize, we can maybe hit one a month kind of a thing. And so if you want to speed that up, then that would help this, basically. And it would give us, I don't believe it's a good use of Rob's time to review every single building permit to ensure that it complies with zoning code, right? We're already using his time for some other tasks that I would like to free up. And so it would help us to be better, to make sure that we're not accidentally permitting something that meets building but doesn't meet zoning code.
Back on the MPA intern, can you promise that we're going to get somebody as good as we had when we had an MPA intern by the name of Aaron Wells a number of years ago?
You found the Easter egg.
We'll get to that as well.
That's got to be a promise.
This one, another person, Mayor, you asked who else. Like when Kelly first came to us, she was just right out of school. So kind of somebody of Kelly's caliber is what we're hoping.
And so in this, do you include what we're going to pay to URS with these increases?
Yes, so it will be in, I'm sorry, yes, we've accounted for that in the budget. It's about a $70,000 increase essentially to move them to a full-time position and then add all of the benefits that a full-time employee would be.
And is that the code compliance? That's Jacob, right? Does that
It
do
is.
away with his job to go to?
It would mean his job would transition to a full-time, and we have let him know that this is something council's considering, and so he would be welcome to apply for the job, and he would be rated against other applicants to see.
What's his other city? Linden?
Linden City, but
Linden.
he does, when he was out on the guard, they transitioned his position to something in public works now. He doesn't do code compliance for them anymore.
Oh, interesting.
So.
I wonder if he would be interested. It'd be interesting to know.
He's very good, just saying.
He is. No,
Sorry.
Jacob is great. So we let him know I don't have any complaints about Jacob, just feeling like we need more capacity in that position.
We really do have the money for 2 full-time people in the library?
We do if the council wants to support a tax increase. So what we've done is transitioned one part-timer to a full-time position and then added an additional assistant. And so we'll dive in more to the library fund a little bit later to see where things are at. But if council wants to support doing a property tax increase, or, well, if they want to support doing a property tax increase, we would do the transition of the employee. Whether or not you do a property tax increase, we really need another part-time person to keep up with TLC. It's stretching our staff as it is, and the Libby increases as well it's broken the budget at this point. So one option we talked about earlier with the fund balance, the $417,000 coming over. If you wanted to use that money instead of doing a property tax increase, you could just use that money and start whittling away at that. Eventually, again, the library would need a property tax increase, but that's another approach council could choose to do. If council chose not to raise the property tax, I would not recommend adding a full-time employee because that won't be sustainable.
And the TLC is more wanted than the collection development manager? In your opinion?
I would.
They
Go
are
ahead.
one and the same.
They are the same.
So TLC
As
was.
needed, you mean? I'm sorry.
They just, let me explain. So TLC is a program that we entered into last year with Linden and American Fork Library, or Pleasant Grove.
Pleasant Grove and
Sorry.
American Fork.
And it's an incredibly popular program. It's expanded the number of resources that our people have access to. As a smaller library, it's actually a really great boon for us. Very popular, but one of the consequences of joining this is that we have assumed about 40 more hours per week of additional work that we have to do just with taking books off the shelves for TLC or reshelving books from TLC, driving around and doing the routes to deliver these books a couple times a week. We've clocked that at about 40 hours. Karen, feel free to correct or add to what I'm saying here. And so what we would like to do is take the collections manager, make that a full-time position, which would then be part of the 40-hour increase, and then have a library assistant that would fill in the additional that we would need for that 40 hours. So between the two of them, we would make up that additional 40 hours of work per week that has appeared.
And 2 part-time people wouldn't save us on benefits and whatnot?
It would,
I mean,
Karen.
instead of 1 full-time person, you put 2 part-time people and to save on benefits and URS.
So part of the concern with part-timers is we have tremendous turnover. It's difficult to retain part-timers. And in terms of staffing, it's also difficult because they come and go as part-timers please. And so there's really no good way to protect the staffing, to incentivize a part-timer to be there for all 15 or 20 hours of work week. And that is just the nature of having part-timers. And we are one of the few libraries who only have part-timers. Today I met with Eagle Mountain and they have 5 full-timers at their Eagle Mountain library. You know, we look at American Fork and they have 44 staff members, a $1.3 million budget, and they have over 10 full-timers. Pleasant Grove has 35 staff members and they have 5 full-time members on their staff. And so we are punching above our weight in work, and we're providing world-class services to Highland from library services standpoint. However, it comes to there's a time where we are doing the work and we're not keeping the ship upright, if you will. And TLC, part of it is it's incredibly popular. We have consolidated services with Pleasant Grove Library and American Fork Library, and that has enhanced our catalog from 43,000 items to over 200,000 items. So patrons in Highland community can come and check out Switch games, PS5 video games from Pleasant Grove Library, have them delivered to Highland Library, have them picked up here. They can come here, pick up an item that was transferred from American Fork, the latest, greatest hot item, and when they return it to us. And we do all the transfers. So that has also added to the workload, the delivery and transfers. And on average, we right now have over 2,000 transfers per month, either 1,100 coming in or 900 going out to the other 2 libraries. So a lot of that TLC workload isn't just pulling books, putting books on hold for patrons. It's running the entire operation seamlessly as if we're a 3-system branch.
You know, I fully support the library. The cities you just mentioned, though, have a tremendous amount of debt and a bigger population. And I'm having a difficult time convincing certain people that I have to answer to, like the taxpayers, having a tax increase. So I just want you to understand that. And then I also have another question about Libby. Have we put any money in to try to save that, or?
So Libby is
that in
part
that
of
budget?
our budgetary needs, as you know. And I can understand and respect your position on this, Councilwoman Rice, because I see the people who come into the library every single day, and I see what they ask for, what they need. And I can tell you the rate, our return on investment, if you will, our ROI, is tremendous, right? For every dollar spent, what does that mean to the family, the individual who comes into the library? What kind of services do they access? It's not just physically printed materials. It's not just digital collections, e-collections. It's not just children's story time. We have our senior social hub. It's a variety of programs. It's a variety of safety nets, if you will. We are a large print center. I had a gentleman come, and he needed help. I helped him prepare his documents on his computer, and he printed 95 copies of front and back page newsletter for his LDS ward. And it was a beautiful newsletter, which he comes and does every month at our library. And he thanked me and said, you know, this is so affordable, so cheap. Your printing is excellent quality because it's Les Olson, and he used to work with them. He's an accountant. So I would look at our ROI. What do we offer for every dollar spent? And what does that do for the public? How does it benefit the citizens of Highland? What do they get from that for their home value, for their property value?
And, you know, Karen, you've sold me. I mean, really, I understand.
So back to your question about
Yeah.
Libby.
No, I get it.
Libby, when we met in February, our numbers from the state library last year were 98,000 circulations, checkouts. They just gave me new numbers, and we're going to meet, the state library is meeting with all directors this Thursday to talk about the Beehive Library Consortium, which is the umbrella which oversees Libby for the state. And our numbers have increased to 111,000 checkouts in the last year. So we've increased from 1.4% to 1.47%. So on Thursday, we're going to have a large-scale discussion among all the public library directors about Libby. So Libby, as you know, went from $1,800 a year for us to now over $10,000, almost $11,000. And so what we'd like to do with this budgetary increase is have a baseline cost for Libby. And have a baseline of $10,000 in that pot. And then as it fluctuates, because it will fluctuate, it will eventually even out, and maybe someday it'll have a lower circulation rate. For now, it's pretty popular. And so our hope is that if we establish a $10,000 baseline per year for Libby, that will help us.
So can I ask a question, Karen?
Sure.
Okay, you talk about with the consortium transporting things. How do you do that? American Fork Library has their own vehicle. How do we transport it?
So currently, unfortunately, we've been using personal vehicles and claiming mileage reimbursement. However, the city has been gracious enough to talk to us about possibly using their community works truck. We're just looking for a shell for the back of it because we need to have it an enclosed vehicle. And so right now, I've been doing delivery. I don't know that you want your library director delivering because that is a 2-hour endeavor twice a week. Or Kim has, our collections manager. We have regular staff who do it. So there's been a rotation.
It'd be interesting to talk to Rob when you have people using their private cars to do city business and what the liability that entails. I'm just curious about that.
There is a concern.
I appreciate you're doing it.
Yeah, that is one of
Obviously,
my questions regarding liability.
So
absolutely.
there's not a van. I've seen a van that says consortium in the parking lot.
So there's one that's
many
American
times.
Fork that
That's
has
American
a
Fork.
TLC. Yes.
It sits here, though. I've seen it a number of times.
Just maybe
But
when
I'm
they're
here a
picking
lot.
up or delivering, would that be American Fork?
We
would
don't
be here for
have
that?
anything marked TLC. We have bins. The bins say TLC, but we don't have a vehicle.
This was a van.
Would American Fork's vehicle be here on occasion though? As
Yes,
they do their
on
routes?
occasion, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So all 3 libraries spend 2 days a week delivering. Pleasant Grove notified me that recently their city gave them a truck. It was an older truck, and they provide the gas and maintenance. So Pleasant Grove also has worked that out. So again, the city has been very kind and generous to offer it. We're just looking for a shell for that truck so we can have an enclosed vehicle.
I'd like to just say that as being on the board for the library, that TLC is probably, and this is no exaggeration, 8 or 10 times bigger and more successful than what I ever imagined. I imagined a couple of boxes of books, you know, a couple of times a week. The volume, the success of it bodes extremely well for the impact that it has on our residents in Highland, that they have access to things that we don't have to go out and buy and triple our budget in order to have access to these books. It's like operating a library with resources that are 3 times, 4 times bigger than what we actually are. So this TLC thing, it's a real blessing to our residents, and I know it's being used a lot because the volume is just overwhelming. I had no idea it would get this big.
The data shows that it is well used. I have all the data of numbers, transfers, circulation. It's increased our workload again by between 36 to 40 hours per week.
What's the percentage of residents that are using Libby? Can you track that?
I don't have that, but I will definitely look it up for us. I do know in terms of households that currently have library cards, not necessarily Libby, but access to Libby because they have library cards. We have over 3,000 households right now. So that's 60% of your market rate, right? And so 60% market penetration, if you will, here. If it were 60% using a certain road, that would be seen as essential infrastructure. And so we know that over 3,000 households have access to Libby.
Back on the specific positions for a moment, that if we do opt to increase 40 hours per week through additional staffing, I strongly support going to a full-time collections manager and a part-time rather than ending up with 3 part-time just to avoid the cost of benefits. That I think that forcing large numbers of people into part-time, no benefited positions is not good for society, and I don't choose to go that direction.
Thank you. Karen kind of alluded to it, but the library kind of has the planning department problem right now, where one of your manager, right, your top employee is spending time doing things that she could make much better use of her time with, right? I would rather a different employee do it, but we don't have another employee who can do it because Karen is the only full-time employee right now in the library. And Councilmember Rice, you're absolutely right. Those other cities have a lot of have a lot of debt, right, and have a lot of population, and we don't want that debt, right? Highland doesn't want that. We don't want to go there. And so the council, ultimately, the reality is if you want the library to run how it has been running, financially, we have to address it somehow. Otherwise, we're talking of a decrease in services. I thought it would be good, I don't intend, we won't do this on every fund, but just to give, especially those of you who haven't been heavily involved in the budget before, just kind of a high-level look as to what you're looking at. So we've been talking about the library fund. In this top section, you're going to look at revenues, and in the bottom section, expenditures. But and you'll have your adopted budget and the proposed budget, right? And then the change year over year. And so, for example, in the library right now, as we've been talking about this,
You're on page 38?
Thank you,
Yes.
Doug. So page 38, yes. So this top line item here, this $417,000 almost, is the payback amount we talked about earlier. And then the next line item down, again, I've highlighted these in yellow because they're asks that I want the council to give us direction on. It would be, it's the property tax, the normal property tax amount plus an increase. And what we ended up budgeting for is $30 per year per home. And what that equates to, so we've talked about it a lot, right? It's the cost of a hardback book, right? Those range around $25, $30 for a hardback book. And so it's the cost of one hardback book per year per home in Highland. That equates to $2.50 per month. And what that will do is transition one of the part-time employees to full-time and then add an additional part-time staff member. I apologize, I'm on the wrong line item. Additional part-time staff member to help with TLC. And then Councilmember Rice, you asked about, did we account for the Libby increase? And we did that here in our books and materials line item. Added an additional $10,000 for that, as well as some additional TLC expenses. Oops.
You did already add that, or it needs to be added?
No, we already did.
Okay.
And I don't know why that jumps like that. And then the other program that's been very popular, the Highland Senior Hub, the grant, when does the grant end for that, Karen?
June 19th.
Okay, so after June 19th, the city would have to pick up the costs. The library would need to pick up those costs if we wanted to continue that program, and so we added some additional budget there. But again, staff, the way that staff did library, and of course, this is council's budget ultimately, you tell us what you would like to do. So we accounted for that $417,000. We just basically put it right back into fund balance and then added some extra interest revenue for them that they could start using to help their budget. And that brings us to $25,000 net revenue. And so we're hoping that that one hardback book a year property tax increase will give the library what it needs for many years to come.
So I've been having a hard time finding it in the sheets.
I'm sorry.
Which page?
38 is
Okay.
where the library starts.
Okay. So the argument about it's the cost of one hardback book, but everybody pays different property tax depending on the value of their home.
Yes.
So some people are paying for 4 or 5 books. Some people are paying for half a book. So this, you're saying the $30 averages out. Is that right?
Yeah, how we calculated it is essentially we said, well, we needed, how much would it take to get us to be above? And so yes, but on average, it would mean $30 per year per home. You're right. So the average Highland home would be $30. The ones who are in above average homes would be more, and the ones who are in smaller or older homes would be less. But yes, you're absolutely right about how our lovely property tax system works. Businesses would be more, of course, too, because they pay 100%.
So your businesses would be paying.
Yes. The increase would hit them as well. Any additional questions about the library right now? And you guys will have lots of time to ask questions more.
So is there a way, and I'm thinking out loud a little bit here, but is there a way, so we're not going to have our zip code till 2028, is that right? And are we
If
allowed-
everything passes.
If it
So it'd
passes.
start fiscal year 28.
Okay.
And we're working
It
on
passed
fiscal
the
year
House.
27, so it's not that far out.
Yeah, it passed the
Yeah.
House, but, so I'm just trying to balance out the 416,000 versus a tax increase in my brain. So if we are we allowed to take zip code money that we would receive on revenue and put it towards the library?
You
Is that
could,
a possibility?
but it's not something that the city has historically done because the library doesn't get any sales tax. It only gets property tax and then fees and fines and grants. But historically, the city has not given any sales tax to the library.
But we've eliminated the fines.
You're absolutely right. We do have
Fees from
fees
other
still if
cities.
people lose things,
Yeah.
but not fines. You're right.
I believe the idea of having an infusion from the general fund was floated a few meetings ago. Council didn't seem to favor that, which is why that's not an option that we've
Or having like
been
the
discussing.
ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the quote unquote payback was actually the highest rated council priority coming out of the budget retreat that we did.
For 2 employees? Two
Well,
full-time
to
employees?
do the transfer of the $417,000
Okay.
to pay it
I
back.
got it.
And this is how staff would recommend that we use that money ultimately to keep the library functioning with the current demand that we have from our residents.
And then on the equipment, does that include copy machine and all of the fun gadgets that we do for games?
Karen, what is your equipment line item?
It's on page 38 towards the bottom. It just says equipment 3,000. 2023. I'm over 2027 would be $3,200 approximately. I just wondered what that included.
what goes into
You don't need to list them all. It take time, but I'm assuming that's a copy machine and all that jazz.
We're going to have her look that up real quick.
Equipment refers to any sort of physical equipment like library book carts, which tend to be very costly things operationally speaking. The copy equipment, that's under IT when we have it serviced. We have a separate fund for maintaining our copier, our technologies.
That's not, is that on here?
It might be printing. I'm sorry, I don't know why that page printed weirdly. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it but if you look, okay, so you've got revenues up top, and then you have expenditures start about halfway down on page 38. And then if you turn the page, again, I don't know why there's a big gap, but you've got one line item for our IT, and then page 40. So we've got printing. I don't know if that's probably the servicing of your copier, right?
It goes under IT.
Oh, okay, IT.
Yeah, thank you.
So if it's okay, we'll dive into, if you have line item questions, we'll dive into those on our one-on-one meetings, and we'll kind of keep going from a high level for this meeting, if that's okay.
Can I make a little
Please.
comment about the library fund? So the original certified property tax, I think, was passed for fiscal year 2008. That's the last property tax increase we had in the city. That's going to be 19 years ago. And one of the issues, and I've been 100% a campaign, do not increase property taxes. But one of the issues you've got here, there's two things. One, I support the $417,000 you're going to bring in. I think it's great. I think we need to figure out how we're going to use that for the library, because it really has been the library's money. And so I think it's important to get that in there. But it does cause a problem if you're trying to do a property tax increase, because I've been on the council long enough that when we've had fee increases, we had an original road fee that was defeated. It was referendum and defeated. And there was an effort to raise property taxes to fix the roads at one time because people didn't want Sunday opening. So I've been there during that time, and that was referred and defeated. Not by election, but the council pulled it. So the problem is if you have that $417,000 as quote an endowment or some other thing, people, when you come around and say, we're going to raise your property taxes, but we've got $500,000 in reserve, that's always becomes a problematic thing to try to convince people. Now, I told Karen, I support a property tax increase for the library because I think it's going to be needed. But I think it's going to be hard to convince people how to do that when you've got $500,000 reserved. Do you see what I mean, Karen? So yeah, it's a matter, because I remember when those other things, the fee and property tax and stuff was discussed, that people went in and said, but you've got all these reserves. Well, we need the reserves. So you just have to be careful how you do it. But, I think the library is well used. I support the consortium. We really are, in many ways, being supported by the other two bigger cities. And yes, they have a lot more debt. American Fork has like $85 million in debt. We're going to soon be debt-free. But at the same time, I do think this is a very popular thing, especially Libby. So I'm just kind of struggling a little bit. I don't like property tax increases. I could support one for the library, a small one. But at the same time, you've got that $500,000 in reserve now coming, and I just don't know how you present that to the public. So I don't know, it's just something we'll have to discuss quite a bit. Do you understand what I'm coming from, Karen?
Absolutely. When Mayor and I were debating how to present this budget and what to include and what not to include, we opted for including everything and then having council pull back anything that you are uncomfortable with.
And discuss
ultimately.
it.
And discuss. So this is you know, right, Scott, this is a draft budget that we're presenting to you, but we totally anticipate you asking us to make some changes, and we will do that. And so this was kind of throwing everything, but absolutely expecting that you'll make some changes. One thing you could consider, if you still want to do the payback, but maybe don't want to do it all at once because you're worried about that perception, just making a plan and saying, okay, for the next 10 years, we're doing 40,000-ish per year or something like that. And that would lower, there would still be a fund balance there, but it wouldn't be $500,000 almost.
Right, that makes sense. And in my research on the certified tax, because I've always supported the library certified tax, but when they created that certified tax, we had a very, very small certified tax in comparison to what was allowed and what's used in other libraries. So, you know, I think there's this kind of balance about the service from the library because it is kind of the heart of the community. So every year, you know, and I understand where we're coming from. We give raises to our staff and to Lone Peak Safety, but we don't increase the library. And yet the library is heavily used, just like those other services. So I don't know. I'm going to have to kind of struggle a little bit with this, and I understand where Councilwoman Rice comes from totally. But at the same time, I think it's a valued service that we need to fund somehow.
And I do too, Scott. I'm not opposing this. It's just that when you run for public office and people ask you, are you going to do a tax increase, property tax increase? And you respond, no, I just became a liar. So I would rather see the 417 transferred at once and use that for the employees. And maybe I'm getting too far in debt here, and use that for the employees until we get and try to use some of our, even though, I mean, it's going to be tricky, but use some of our zip code money, because I really believe it will come through in a couple of years to pull that in somehow to the library. I don't want the library to suffer. I don't want the people of Highland to suffer either. But for me to run against any kind of property tax increase, and then vote for it, even though it's very minute. I mean, is this going to kill me to do $250 a month? No. The problem that I keep facing, though, is what the school district's taxes, the new school district's taxes are going to be. And that's kind of what we have to make sure that we're not.
Well, and I understand that, but it's interesting because councils, we shy away from property tax because people get so upset about it.
Yeah, they do.
And I understand that, and how I've ran for election several times. But we never hesitate about raising fees. And so fees are just another name for tax.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, I don't know, it's kind of, I'm just talking about we need to discuss it. And,
Sure. And
you know.
I'm kind of on the fence about, I'm not really on the fence about,
And
If-
that's
if we've got
absolutely
that-
fine. Really, what we anticipate is when we have our one-on-ones, we'll get a feeling from each of you where you're at, and we'll see if we can count to 3, right? Is the magic, it's the joke, right? See if on one of these solutions, can we count to 3 on, right?
I
And get
absolutely feel that
a
we
majority.
need at least one more employee. But to go 2 is pushing me a little bit.
That's fair.
You just finished putting together the budget. I'm very, very much hoping that you can count to 3.
Hopefully, right? When we're talking third of a million. Let's see, 1 point for Jay, 1 point for Doug. That's going to be the new game that we play.
And the points don't matter.
Exactly. All right. I'm going to keep us moving a little bit just so that we're not here forever, if that's okay, and then we'll kind of dive in more into each of our one-on-ones. So the other 2 positions are some intern type positions. If you remember a couple years ago, we actually had an intern who helped us scan all of our cemetery records and digitize those. This would be a similar kind of a thing. It could be we've had actually, it was a library employee who helped us, and just had some extra hours and was willing to give. So we're hoping for that type of a situation again, who is interested in helping us digitize so that we,
I'm assuming this is 2 points for Jay?
This is 2 points for Jay. I couldn't remember where the other one was, and I just found it. 2 points for Jay to get that fire lit under us so that we can
The points don't matter.
get that taken care of. Well, and yes, here's the other point for Jay. So the management intern, how many years ago? 2011, 15 years ago, was the last time we had a management intern. So the idea would be to have that position get to help us to accomplish some of those projects that we're not getting to again, and that we haven't been able to prioritize, and also give them some experience as they prepare to enter the workforce. Usually it's somebody who is getting their master's in public administration degree, though it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But that is 15 years ago was the last intern, so.
And how does that work for an intern? You still pay benefits? You still pay hourly wage?
We have to pay a small amount of money into URS, our in lieu amount for Social Security, but that's the only benefit that they get. So both of these positions would be, I put part-time/seasonal, just meaning that, they would ebb and flow depending on hours, but it's not a position that we would anticipate continuing unless council wanted us to, right? The MPA could be something we continue to do every year if council wanted to and saw the value in that.
How long were you an intern here?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half.
So it was, about a year and a half. And then I ran away to Lehigh for a couple of years and then came back and have been here for a while now. So my favorite day, I think, actually, one of my favorite days at Highland was when I took a picture of myself when I had moved into the office that I currently use. Took a picture of it and sent it to the city manager who hired me and said, hey, guess what? So it was kind of a fun moment.
And one of the many things that Erin did as an intern is she helped us put together the Highland City Foundation, if you remember that.
We did.
Yeah.
We did, Scott. That was a great project.
It's been a great benefit to the city.
Yep. Okay. All right. So that's all about staff at this point. I'm ready to shift over to talk about public safety a little bit, if council's ready for that. So this is something that you guys are going to have to approve next Tuesday. The tentative budget will come to you to consider approval on, and I wanted to give you a little sneak peek of what that looks like. So there are 3 different departments in public safety, well, 4, but 3 main ones in public safety. In administration, the change there is we have added a contract attorney. Rob used to do both, and with all of the formula discussions and interlocal discussions, we felt that it was best to have a totally separate attorney. And so there is a new attorney that just works for the district.
And that decision is final?
Is it final?
Yeah.
The board approved his contract, so
Because I understand, and I think Alpine drove that concern, feeling like there might be a bias that he would have. But we're beyond that now, and we don't have that formula. And we've got safeguards in place where I don't think we'll be facing the same problem that we had again. And it just seems like getting someone from the outside, is that really the best use of our resources that we have, when Rob certainly has proven that he can do it, and I think he can do it fairly. And any concern that Alpine may have had, I'm not sure they would still have that. So I'm not saying that I don't want to do this. I'm just saying I'm hoping that they have that discussion. Is this really the right thing to do? But it's really up to your board, the Lone Peak board, to recommend what they want, and then we'll respond to that.
I'd say so. Lone Peak board members, anything you want to say?
Yeah, so I think Alpine does still want the attorney, but I also think that Rob prefers this to be somebody outside just because it's a lot of time. I think we see kind of the public things that happen, like the formula adjustment or whatever, But I think there are a lot of things that happen with public safety kind of behind the scenes that we're not always aware of. And I think it's good to have somebody else. And it's not like a full-time position. It's just contracted to come to our meetings and the time actually spent. So I feel like it's a good use of time.
I think we budgeted 10 hours per month for the position, just kind of guessing. That's what we're roughly expecting him to use. So. The increases, so each city pays its own dispatch dues, and actually Councilmember Courtney is going to talk to us about that a little bit on Tuesday and kind of give us a preview as to what that looks like. And then we talked about this earlier, but the big thing coming out of admin is actually it's using the fund balance that's accumulated in administration to refund to the cities requisite to the formula change for the fire department. So both cities would be getting a refund on that. When we look at the police, we have, so both for police and fire, the board approved 2 weeks ago a 5% wage adjustment for the departments. So police will be mainly targeted as a market adjustment. There will probably be a little bit of merit within that 5%, but 5% wage adjustment. The big change there would be to actually add a lieutenant position, or you'll hear us refer to it as a supervisor position. The board asked us to look and see where are the needs in terms of staffing for Lone Peak, and as Chief William analyzed that, he said, look, I've got enough officers. We've been able to keep up with the call volume, but we don't have enough supervisors. And so that was what he requested and the board approved. There is a use of fund balance to purchase vehicles. Lone Peak's in an interesting place that it hasn't been in for a long time, where there is actually a heavy fund balance there. And so we need to come up with a long-term, here's what we want to do with the fund balance. But for the meantime, the board has approved using some of that fund balance to purchase vehicles this year. And normally we cycle 3 vehicles. And then this budget includes a 4th vehicle for the new position, as well as 1 or 2 motorcycles. I think it's 2. Chief Patton just confirmed. Look, you even know police budget.
So would these be faster vehicles to catch the Sirons?
Hopefully, right? I keep telling Chief William he needs a bike police officer, and I cannot convince him to do that. So I'm going to keep working on him.
And this is not, when you talk about buying 3 new vehicles, this is not 3 vehicles that we would not be replacing otherwise. We're just buying them instead of leasing them.
Correct. So normally we do a lease to own type of a program, basically, and this is just instead of adding to our lease line item, so that line item goes down, we're just buying them outright. And then the last thing that actually the board added during the tentative budget approval was to add a report writing software. So after a police officer has an interaction, they have to go back and write reports based on their video camera and what happened. And this software it's an AI tool essentially that will download the video, start the template for them basically, and then allow them to make the edits that they need to. But Chief William is still studying to make sure that we purchase the correct software, but we're actually hopeful that it's $20,000 is what we have in the budget. And we're actually hopeful that this will essentially free up another patrol officer in terms of all of the time that it can save when we look across the department.
One quick tangent on that's something that I hope the city will look at also. If there are similar tools that we can use. To me, the big argument in favor of this was we spend $3.25 million staffing our police department. Why are we not spending the $15,000, $20,000 that it takes to make every single one of those patrol officers significantly more effective and efficient at things? If there are similar things with the city, I think we should be looking at those also.
I agree. All right, looking at good heavens, fire department. So we do have a revenue increase that we are seeing. So increased call volume does come with increased revenues for us, both from ambulance as well as just when we respond to somewhere in the county. Usually it's up the canyon. The county reimburses us, and actually more than reimburses us. And so we are seeing increased revenue in both of those. Like we talked about, it's a new financing formula in the fire department, so it's based on market value of each city. And then the fire department does have that same 5% wage adjustment in their budget. They have a step and grade program, so it'll be about 3% will go towards their merit increases, whether a firefighter has met the criteria to get that merit increase, and then the remainder will be for market adjustments. When we look as to, okay, this is a table that we've talked about for a number of years. Because we want to make sure that public safety is a large part of our budget, right? And they're a very important part of our property and sales tax budget, right, our general fund, but we want to make sure that it's not crowding out everything else that has to come out of the general fund. So the criteria that we've used for that is I can't highlight that. What percent of our sales and property tax is public safety taking? And so when the public safety fee was first established back in 2020, that percent was about 76%. And so we've tracked as staff to make sure that, or to try to make sure that it stays in that no more than that 76% range. Last year, it bumped up to almost 52 or 82, percent, which is why, we had that conversation with Alpine City about, is the fire formula really fair? So with the change, we are down to almost up to 76%, but it's within that threshold where, again, at this point, staff feels comfortable with where we're at in the general fund to leave the public safety fee as it is. Okay.
Oh, here it is.
Any questions about public safety before we step into the next thing? All right, bear with me. We've talked about most of the things that are on the next few slides, but
Erin,
Yes,
are we talking
ma'am.
about the top council priorities right now?
Yes.
Okay, so there has been a slight change in what our number one priority is. And council and mayor can back me up on this one. As you guys know, the 2034 Olympics are coming to Utah, and there have been a significant number of grants, both federal and state, available to the cities to help build out infrastructure that coordinates with the Olympic events. So we have Senator Mike Kennedy has approached the city and mayor, and along with
He's representative.
representative, my bad. And then Fraser Bullock, I think he reached out to you, Brittany. So he is the committee chair of the organizing committee, and they have identified an area in which they would like to build. Was it an ice skating rink?
Yes, for the Olympics.
Yes. After it fell through in Lehigh, then they approached me.
Yeah, Priest Highland.
Was it the Lone Peak area?
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea if we don't have to raise taxes.
We don't actually,
Okay.
Liz.
All right.
So they said the budget would be about 3.6 million, but with the grants coming in for federal and state, they are proposing a 50% match. So we would do 1.8 million. So just looking over.
You gave it away, man. You gave it away.
You just couldn't keep it up, could you?
Couldn't do it with a straight face.
She was trying
I thought you did well, Kim.
Y'all.
Kim,
Kim gets like
I saw
Couldn't
twinkle
do it
in
with a
your
straight face.
Would it have to be
The
open
only
on
thing I was
Sunday?
gonna.
Aaron, we're looking at you.
The amazing thing is that Liz agreed to it.
You all went really white.
You were on board, right?
I was watching. They all went white. Only thing I was going to add was that we wanted an MLB stadium around the ice rink, and if we build it, they will come.
They will come.
We'd like 1.8 million for an ice skating rink is our top priority budget.
She was not surprised by that total pivot.
Yep, they're all pretty white over there.
It's April's Fool.
Oh my gosh.
2 weeks later.
We're still in April.
Kim
That's
gets
true.
10 points for that, so she's the winner at this point. She's in the lead. Okay, now that my heart's beating a little slower for a minute.
You were pretty convincing until you started laughing.
You were good.
My mind was working. I'm like, how could we make this work? We could have it open on Sunday, sell alcohol, put out the Longhorn property. What else?
There's no parking.
No, I was going to suggest the Longhorn property for the ice rink. See, that's yeah. And I could have done it with a straight face.
I really think you did well, Kim. It was very,
Raise your block. He lived in Alpine.
I mean, at one point I'm going, this really was a punk, wasn't it?
Somebody's tuning in late. That was a joke.
I was sitting here thinking, Mayor and I have a rule about no surprises. This is a surprise. Okay. Let's talk. Let's talk about the priorities. So library tax repayment is in the budget as we discussed. Both of the intern positions, additional money for traffic calming, so that came out very high, and so we added that. Are they getting to the budget? Is Alpine getting to the budget? Oh, okay. Oh. I'm going up afterwards to talk to Alpine about the Lone Peak budget. So I was just seeing if that was what was happening there. Okay, so traffic calming, we've put in $50,000 to be able to do more with the money. As you know, we're, other than those 2 additional things we're doing on Canal Boulevard, we're pretty much spent out on our traffic calming money for the year. Increased hours to event.
Did that include 9600 North?
Chris, help me.
That was being used road maintenance fee for most of that. It wasn't necessarily coming out of the traffic
That's something.
calming.
This is something. Okay.
Thank you. We have some priorities that council had was to increase hours for the event position. So there still will be 2 part-time positions, but we put more hours into each of those positions so that hopefully so that we can have additional capacity in that department. We actually are working on getting a job offer out to the assistant, so we're hoping to have that person on soon. And then Brooke's up and going certainly and has had a couple fleeing meetings. So, and we'll talk more about the Easter egg hunt actually at next city council meeting.
What does that 7250 represent in terms of
each of them getting to
hours
20 hours? Is that right, Jay?
Yeah, it's we currently the main civic events coordinator position is a half-time position, and this would have it going to like 3/4 time. And then the assistant position is like quarter time, so it would be going to half-time.
Thank you.
Another high priority that the council budgeted for was the Highland Fling, to add additional money there. And so we've added an additional $20,000 in spending ability for the Highland Fling.
And it was 20, so it makes it 40.
40 net revenue, yes.
Right.
Yeah, so it's 80,000 total can be spent on the fling, with 40,000 brought in through revenue, and then the additional would be through sponsorships.
Now, what was it before when it was 20? Were we just at 40? We had a total of 60 before?
For a total of 60, yes.
Okay, very good.
Next is bike park maintenance. So putting $20,000 in there to help keep up all of the good work that the volunteers have done down at the bike park. And so the idea with that would be probably tools, equipment, things like that, but also some labor who's specifically capable of doing that. And then the code compliance position that we talked about, the planning tech position, I should say. Some things that did not get funded. So 9 was the midpoint, basically where the midpoint when we looked at the priorities. And so things that fell below 9 did not get funded in the general fund budget. For sake of time, I'm going to keep going. Any other questions about general fund priorities? All right, moving on to cemetery. As we actually, I'll let Jay take this one.
So what we have there is saying fund is still being analyzed. I went over that earlier. The fund study that Zions Bank did does not contemplate any sort of capital improvements such as a veterans memorial. So keep that in mind as we go down that path. But right now we've not, even though the Veterans Memorial is above a 9, which was midpoint, meaning that it has some support at this point. while we're still trying to just figure out how to get the fund stable going forward so that it can take care of itself in the future, we didn't want to add any additional burden to that until we've kind of solved this conundrum. So,
And I want to say, don't we have, isn't it 30,000 a year oh, well, maybe the fund study isn't contemplating, but right now we have 30,000 in the capital.
Yeah.
Okay. So more coming on the cemetery fund, kind of as we talked through.
And we're not going to consider, I can't remember on this, so help me. We're not going to consider any kind of a crematory, you have a word for it, Stephanie?
columbarium.
Columbarium. Nothing, that's not. being
That was
considered at this
in
point.
that was in last year, and it ranked very low in priority, and we didn't really bring it back this year.
Okay.
I think we also, didn't we do the survey on this, Stephanie, as well?
We did. We asked a question on the survey and it was not received favorably. So, although I am getting a lot of requests still.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm getting a lot of questions from people, so.
We've talked in depth about library, but Jay and or Karen, anything else you want to add that you don't think that we hit well? Or any questions from council? We funded all of the positions mostly from, while the conversion from collection development to full-time did not score high, we funded it just simply to start to have the conversation. We didn't fund it. We put it in the budget to have the conversation with staff to have the conversation with council to see if you really wanted it and wanted to make sure that you understood the impact, the full impact that TLC is having on our staff there.
Those two positions are largely being driven by TLC, which is, as I think you can understand, is very popular.
Yeah, and I understand and appreciate what you said, Councilmember Smith, the concern of perception, that
We'll have to work on the perception.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's important, and the general public won't understand like one-time monies versus ongoing funds. My question is, if not now, then when? Because these services are so popular in this community, and it's kind of already a sunk cost. If we were to try to disentangle or stop TLC, we'd have a lot of unhappy community. We'd become an island of a library back to our 43,000 items. There's been a lot of great interlocal agreement between the three libraries. And in fact, the state library has asked us to speak on this partnership, which we'll do in September. So it's been a really good model. The challenge is that I don't think we initially anticipated how popular it would be, and that it would require so much work and additional resources. But we're continuing, and again, if the public were to understand or be educated, if you will, about what those monies go to, I think that the people coming in love the library and would support that. They just need to learn about some of the differences in funding sources.
This is
Maybe
the first.
we need to do an education type thing in the newsletter of what the library does do. I mean, and it's not that I don't know, I do know, but there are people that are pressuring that I don't use the library.
Yeah, Councilmember Rice, I appreciate that. And I've started writing those letters. If you go back to the Highland monthly newsletter and you look at February's was about, January's was about the fire, February was about.
I know they are.
Yeah.
I get that, Karen. It's just maybe we need to even increase the amount of space you get or something. I mean, I don't know. It's just an idea.
And I
mean,
appreciate
don't kill
that.
the messenger. It's just, this is a pressure I'm getting from some people. So.
And I'm happy to host town halls to answer questions. I'm happy to provide explanation. I think that we do need to provide some learning and education about how a library is funded. That Libby, we say it's free, but it's not free, right? So there needs to be, I agree with you, a concerted effort in providing that to the community, that education.
And there are people that really do think it is free. And I had to explain to them that all the funding was cut, not just on the federal level, but the state level,
Yeah.
like what we've talked about, Karen.
Thank you.
It's not that I don't support you. You need to understand that. It's just you need to understand what I'm up against
Right.
on,
I appreciate
I
that.
don't mean paying the $250 a month. There are people that are.
Yeah.
So-
I recognize that. And, again, the library is for everyone. And the families who come in, I helped a patron today. Her husband lost his job he was a computer engineer and he's been unemployed. And they homeschool their children and they come to the library. And that's where they receive the pipeline of 200,000 books plus other physical items, plus early literacy, story time, a myriad of resources. So I can understand when we have community members who are struggling or underserved in some way, having challenges, we are able to provide that gap and bridge that gap for them.
Can I make a little comment that kind of goes to this too, because I don't want to prolong this, but there's always this argument in the community is, I don't know why I have to pay property tax to the school district because none of my kids go there anymore. But yet, we're a community. There's always the argument, why should I pay any money that goes to parks because I don't use them? And but that opportunity is still there. And I pay most of my property tax goes to the school district, and I don't know how much more will go with Aspen Peaks. But my grandkids go there, and I'm glad they're getting an education and things. And it's kind of the same idea about anything as a community level. The library is a community resource. Not everybody uses it. And so people can always have the argument, I don't use the library, so why do I pay for it? I don't know. It's just we're a community. And so I think we have to kind of find that balance. Does that make sense? Because there's a lot of services I pay for every year, especially on a national basis, that I don't directly benefit from. But there are a lot of things that I do, and it's oftentimes a matter of my choice to use them. So I'm a big supporter of this library, but I don't check books out very often because I've got my own personal library. And I'm going to donate more books to the library because I need to wean it down because I like buying books. But it's kind of the same thing with the parks. I don't go over and play pickleball in the park because we got pickleball courts in our private park. But, it's the same time, we all use the roads, we all use these other things. And I just think it's a community thing. And so when people say, I don't want to pay for it, I just think, well, but we're in it together as the community. And so I don't know. It's a hard thing.
I agree with you, Scott, and I think everyone uses resources within the community differently.
Right.
I mean, why do I need to pay maintenance for the cemetery? I don't use a cemetery.
Hopefully.
Years down the road. Years.
I don't know.
Don't jinx me, Liz. Don't jinx me. But yeah, it ebbs and flows. Eventually, I will, and then I won't be using the parks or I won't be using the schools. It ebbs and flows. There are uses of the community. But I think one thing that we need to be transparent about and communicate with when we talk about property tax is, we haven't raised it since 2008. When you take inflation compounded over those amount of years, that's 53% increase. You're looking at a 33% buying power that we're essentially paying. So what $1 was there is now in 2008 is worth $1.50 now.
Well, and that's the kind of education I'm talking about. I don't, not necessarily what the library does or what it does for the community. We all know that. Everybody knows that. It's the idea of, well, we haven't raised taxes since 2008, but from 2008 to 2011, we were in everybody was in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And I would say it's fiscally irresponsible not to raise property taxes when you are having an increase in inflation. There are cities that raise their property taxes to coincide with inflation so they don't have to do this, where they have a large increase every 10, 15, 20 years. Instead, it's not an increase, it's essentially keeping up with inflation and staying
or
table
even
with it.
Balancing it out.
But then you're faced with this issue of now we are literally working at a deficit of 33% and having to make it up in different areas and doing the fees, which is a flat tax, and it's unfair. And I don't agree with them. And so we're trying to work around it, in which we should have, taken a hard line and done property tax increases instead of it.
All this talk about education has made me remember back when we added the road fee. We jokingly called them road shows. We went around and did open houses at 4 different schools around the city, and then did a final one here in city council chambers. And I feel like we need to do something similar if the council chooses to pursue a library property tax increase, something similar to help educate people, right, and help them understand how much we're talking about, what the library does, all these things that you guys are talking about to try to help educate because absolutely, right, we want to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we want to use property tax increases when needed, but we need to show them that it really is getting to the point that it is needed in the library. So more road shows maybe ahead of us.
On this slide for one question, possibly a couple of questions. The collection manager, is that currently a 10-hour-a-week position?
That's currently 26 hours per week.
Okay, then I don't think we have nearly enough money in for the library assistant. If we're adding a net 40 hours, at 20 hours, that's only $6.50 an hour.
We'll go back and do the math. Oh, for the 6,500.
Unless they're not figuring.
Because 20 hours a week over 50 weeks is 1,000
Right, that's
hours.
not correct.
So I think that 6,500 number is wrong.
Must have dropped a number there or something. Thank you.
It's 20,
Dang it, I thought I was going to go a whole
hours. It's
meeting
full-time.
without Doug finding my error.
Yeah, that is an error. Because we're paying more than $6.50 an hour.
Yes, thank you.
That's a good catch.
Okay. Moving away from the library, looking at, let's talk about Parks Capital. So a couple of the things that were requested. One was the Highland Glen Park sign, to fix that sign. And actually that's in progress. I had forgotten, but that was budgeted for this current fiscal year, and so that's in progress. We're trying to get it wrapped up before the end of this fiscal year. So that one, while it didn't score highly, it was in the budget for this year.
Now, that's the sign at the top,
Yes, the entry sign.
the entry.
PI fund, the council priority in that fund was to buy additional water shares as we are able. So sometimes people will approach the city and say, I've got these extra shares, right? I'm not using them anymore. And so, because we've gotten to the point, we used to have extra shares and we really don't anymore. Yes. So we put some money into the budget to be able to start accumulating that excess, which only helps us during drought years, right? Even, so the pool is cut a little bit, but the more that we have in the pool, the more that we are still going to be able to get. 22,000 is what the library assistant number should be. So thank you for
And it is
catching
in the
that.
budget as 6507.
As 6507.
That's what the comment is at any rate on the line item in the budget we received.
Okay. We'll double check.
Okay.
We'll make sure that it is actually in the budget for the correct amount,
Okay.
but not the $6,500.
Yeah, that's just how because right now the collection manager is part-time, so moving them out. So
Right, yep.
I
It's
actually
probably
put in,
just
the,
the
I put
net.
in the net change
Yep.
rather than what that cost is. So the cost
That
is
makes sense.
22,000,
Yep.
offset by So
Thank you for catching that for us. Storm drain fund. So the vac truck was prioritized highly, but as council recently approved that for purchase in fiscal year 26. So it's going to take them, wasn't it up to 6 months, Chris, to get the vac truck? So it might not actually get here this fiscal year, but we'll roll over that money as needed. So. In the sewer fund, so this is going back to the building security that council prioritized, so putting a permanent building over the Greens Lift Station and doing the fencing at Pheasant Hollow.
Can I ask a quick question about the fencing? Is that chain link?
Isn't it black chain link?
Yeah, I think what's out there right now is a black chain link fence. Yeah.
is that the one too, we're going to try to get American Fork to participate in as well, because they
Yeah.
own part of the facility down there?
Yep.
Yeah, their water system's up behind our sewer lift station, right? Their pressurized irrigation.
In the water fund, this all, again, we talked about most of these already. So replacing our old hydrants, increasing the size of our old water lines, doing some fencing again for security at 2 of our wells. And then, I neglected to include that in PI, but we also included some, well, we didn't increase the budget, but we felt like we could focus more on water conservation education within both culinary and PI. We're actually required to because of a grant we're getting through Central Utah for Yapify to help us pay for that. So we're required to do some of that education. We feel like we already have that within the budget of our professional services line items. Okay. We're getting close to the end, Council. All right, so potential changes to come, things that we're still being worked on. Cemetery fund, we've talked about that. GPS in vehicles is another thing that Council has asked us to look at, to move towards, right? Getting some real GPS in our vehicles. Right now we have air tags on a number of things, but don't have full GPS systems. As Chris and I were strategizing, we thought it made sense to start with our snow plows because we often get phone calls of, you've never snowplowed my road, or when did you ever come by? And so it'll be nice for us to be able to tell people, well, here's when we last went by your road or something like that.
We got tons of that this year, as you know.
Jay's trying to catch up to Kim. So the thought would be to start with snow plows. And so we have some budget in our, it would be the roads department in the general fund for that. But we're still finalizing costs on that, so there might be some tweaks there.
Do we have a unified system for every, in other words, it's one system? Because I get all kinds of emails from GPS providers that say our system's the best for municipalities, et cetera, et cetera. I assume you've done all that research and you've got somebody identified to do your GPS?
We've got one company that we've been looking at based on some research that we've done. So, but that may not be the company we end up wanting to.
Be nice to know what other cities maybe you've found and what they're using.
And we are,
because I've started blocking all these people.
I've reached out to other cities to see what they've done, and we will learn from some of their mistakes that they've made in the past and where they've moved on to. So that's kind of where we're going to start. So.
Good.
And on this GPS system, does this help prevent theft too, or just where they're located, right? It helps prevent.
Yeah, well, that's part of the idea, to prevent, it won't prevent theft other than we'll know where the vehicle's at, so they won't be able to get away from us.
So with your company that you're looking at, just a suggestion, make sure that what the charge is for updates. When I had a GPS on my car, the update was really expensive, in my opinion. So you have a bunch of cars and maybe it's just automatic anymore with Wi-Fi and everything. I don't know how that works on city vehicles.
I think you're right. I think especially with the older vehicles, it was quite a bit to update them. It seems like the newer ones can do it much easier.
This might be a stupid question, but why can't we just air tag it? I just found a stolen e-bike because we had an air tag on it and it worked great.
That's what we've been doing so far, and I think this is in response to what the council wants to see. I think it's worth looking at and still seeing it. We can get a little bit better idea of what's going on. One of the advantages like that this would provide is we could actually set up a geofence, so we could set up for Utah County, and if a vehicle ever went outside of Utah County, we'd get a notice right then. For the most part, most of our vehicles are going to, even when we're on call, they're still going to remain within the county or something. They also recommended equipping our vehicles with dash cams so that we have a visualization of where the vehicle's at. I know there's one instance in my previous city where they were able to go back. They had gotten a complaint that had come in by a resident saying, this driver in an Eagle Mountain truck cut me off. And between the GPS, they could track his speed along there, and then using the dash cam, they could actually verify it was the other way around. It was the other vehicle that cut the Eagle Mountain vehicle off. So those are a few advantages of looking at something like this.
But to answer your question, Councilmember Rodella, I mean, while we see advantages to this was staff's response. We felt like we were asked to head towards getting GPS in vehicles. If you don't want us to and just want us to continue air tagging, we will do that as well.
I use air tags on my dog and cat, and when I go to find it, it just says too far. So it doesn't really work for things that aren't right handy 3 feet away from you. At least I've not found it that it works that way. So
I've got
there's just so many limitations on air tags.
I've got my side-by-side and my e-bike both air tagged, and I can tell you where they're at right now. On
Me
my
too.
phone, so.
I have my kids air tagged also.
My kids won't let me air tag.
My missionary, my wife might have put one on my missionary.
Does it work all the way in? Where's the Michigan? South Dakota? Apparently it works in South Dakota for, yeah.
Did you say between New Mexico, like Albuquerque and the border? My recollection was that one of the concerns about GPS was battery usage on the vehicles. If we do go that route, I'd be inclined to start reasonably slow, so that we can kind of figure out what that's really doing for us.
Agreed. And while we like the ideas, if we decide to move forward of doing it on snow plows, just so we'll have more data on them, a snow plow we absolutely need to start when it's time to start. So Chris is very aware of that, and we're going to make sure we do that research.
We'll do a battery of tests prior to implementing.
I've lost track on points at this.
That was a good one. Well done.
All right. IT fund. So Jay, do you want to speak to that one?
Sure. It is the fund. My pride and joy. I'd love to sit down with any of you and spend 5 hours going over just all the intricacies, but basically it's still in flux right now. As you may know, equipment prices have skyrocketed over the last year. We're working with Tech Legion, our IT provider, to nail down what those costs will be exactly. We're also doing an internal audit of devices to make sure we know exactly how many we have, when they were last replaced, and discussing when should we keep with our 4-year warranty, or should we move it out to 5. So it's still in flux because of just those intricacies in trying to nail down prices on equipment.
And then every year we do a salary study of employees just to see where are we at within market for comparable positions to our neighboring cities. So that's ongoing. Like I said, we've got 4% put in as a placeholder now. I don't think we came in lower than that last year, around 3%. So I feel like 4% will give us. I think that's a good number at this point. Council also asked us to do a salary study, if you remember, back in December when we made some changes to the retirement. And so Jess is getting some updated data on that, and we'll bring back some information for you to tell us what you would like to do in terms of council salaries as well, because those have not been adjusted in a number of years either.
You mean my 25 cents an hour isn't working for everybody?
I don't know, right? Is it even that high?
Well,
you all put in so many hours, so.
In 2010, we cut the salary for
I
the city
remember that.
council. And then it was about 3 years ago, we had a small increase.
Yep.
But I mean,
But I think
really-
that's been the only adjustment, so.
Right.
It's, when we looked, if you remember the data that came back in December that we're working on updating, even in comparison with cities of similar sizes, we are pretty low. And I know that none of you are doing this to make money, right? 25 cents an hour, you're not going to get anything off of, but we certainly want to account for the amount of time that you're putting in and try to say thank you. So, all right. Sorry. That's up to Mayor.
I feel like if you're here and sitting through it, if you want to come up though to the microphone.
We'll even let Wes come up.
I just wanted to add that when I was on the city council, almost 20 years ago now, I think we got about a little over $400, or yeah, about $400 every 2 weeks. So a little over $800 a month. And we were a city of about 28,000 at the time. So just for reference, you guys are very, very minimally compensated.
Well, and one of the problems is, you know, I don't particularly want a bigger salary, but one of the problems is if you're not paying anything, I think it may dissuade people from running for election, because it is a big time commitment if you don't get compensated at all.
It is, and you know, a lot of people now have, we call them side hustles, right? Is the current lingo, or some kind of part-time job, right? And if you're spending 10 hours plus a week on city council, right, you don't have time for that side hustle that was making you a little bit of money.
Well, and one of the things is being on city council, we also serve on governing boards. So I'm on the North Point Solid Waste Management Board. Most of the people on that board are actually employees of cities and are being paid to be there. And I get paid mileage, about $150 a year, and that's it. I mean, I sit with this county commissioner who's getting paid to be there. And that's true with other boards. Animal board, you know, most of it's city staff, except for about 3 of us that are elected. So, you know, I think it's just a little unfair sometimes, because some of those people are getting paid $40 an hour to be there, you know.
Be there anyway.
Yeah.
I'd say also when you have a lower wage for your city council, your demographics aren't as broad as it could be, and taking into account, you know, differing circumstances, differing demographics as well.
Okay. So we talked about this, we've talked about each of these, but there are 4 main questions when I meet with you one-on-one that I'm going to be asking and asking for direction on. So first is, what do we want to do with the library fund, specifically about the library property tax increase? But we'll broaden that also to the payback, right? Do you want to do the property tax increase? Do you want to do the payback? Do you want to do it all at once? So, and then what about the expenses within that, the fund that are being proposed? The second is, we do have in the budget chlorination for the culinary water system. Now, I didn't put it in there saying, like, trying to be sneaky and saying we're going to do it. Staff would not implement chlorination without council approval, but in talking with Mayor Bills, we didn't want to later tell you about some additional expenses and try to fit them into the budget. We would rather include them now. So if you want to pull them out and talk about them later, we're totally fine with that. Or if you want to leave it in now, that still won't give staff the green light to go ahead and chlorinate. We would still ask for your permission.
Well, now my understanding is that the state tells us to chlorinate, we have to, no matter if you have our permission or not. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
I'd say that's probably accurate, Chris.
What did you say, Aaron?
I'd say that's accurate, right?
I think, I mean, the state's going to tell us that we are hitting too many targets that we shouldn't be hitting. I don't know that they'll actually come out and say you have to chlorinate. They'll say you have to do something, though. So,
but we're not doing that yet.
Correct.
And don't we have at least 2 wells that I'm aware of, 2 and 4, that are already set up for chlorination? Is that true?
Yeah, and we've got the project to get 1 and 5 up and have the ability to chlorinate.
So if you had to do it, you could do it. So
yeah.
I'm going to just add into this a little bit. So we've got this issue with TI going to drop a well in the city. And I guess I would think that we need to be doing some sort of study saying, what are we going to do if that does happen? And are we going to need to generate some funds to lower our own wells? Because I was surprised at how much well 6 is used for pressurized irrigation when we had the report. And so on these really dry years, we're going to be drawing on our wells. Now, I may never live long enough to see TI fully functional, but at the same time, I think we need to be prepared in case we have to drop another well deeper or have to drill another well, and maybe we ought to be doing some sort of study on how we would do that and where we would do it. Because one of the wells, I think, for pressurized irrigation is just up the road, isn't it? Just directly north of the TI side. And so I think that's a very critical thing that we need to be kind of planning for, and maybe putting some in the fees and the budget and that, have it there, and maybe it's already there, but I don't know. What do you think, Chris? It seems like we need to be talking about it.
I agree. I think we should. In the past, I mean, so far, we've tried to get TI to provide us with the study information, the materials that they've already done, so that we have at least kind of a basis to look at it. We're trying to make them have to pay for it as much as we can. We have had more discussions, like, the council's aware about all that, but it's not a bad idea for us to make sure that we have the monitoring available, that we can measure all of our levels and see where they're at, and see where the trend line goes on there, and be prepared if we do have to do any major upgrades to any of our wells.
And I agree with Scott on that, and with you on another well, or dropping our wells deeper. And I think that when I started looking at amounts of money, that it's almost cheaper to drop another well than it is to expand or deepen our current wells, and you can correct me on that, but.
No, I would actually agree with that.
Okay.
Generally.
And then, aren't all of our wells going to be fitted for, so here's my thinking. And I'm not really for chlorinated water. I think it tastes nasty, but I believe that when TI goes online, when and if they do, we're going to be chlorinating. And it's just some things I've read. But aren't all of our wells going to be fitted for chlorination? And we have the money already for that. Isn't that correct, Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's our most shallow well? How deep?
I don't know off the top of my head. I would guess
It's less
probably
than 1,000
3.
though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because isn't TI going to go 1,000?
That's deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think even deeper than that. I
Even
think all of
deeper
our
than
wells
that.
are less
So
than
the
1,000.
potential that we have wells currently that would go dry, depending on the volume that they take out of there, is pretty high. So we need to plan for that and hold TI responsible, if you will, to help offset that, if not totally mitigate it.
So we're running most of the PI system out of our deepest well right now, which is the newly refurbished 4. Is that correct? And then some out of, and then one's the other one.
Yes, right now. Most of our culinary water.
And one's by the Barbie house, if I remember correctly.
By the palm tree house, yep.
Yes, the palm tree. Okay. And I like the house. I'm not being derogatory, but it's the house just south of the PI well. It's the one with the artificial palm trees.
I don't know the house.
Oh my
With all
goodness,
the
we need to
Christmas
have a
trees
tour.
and
It's
the pine
gorgeous.
trees.
On 5600 West.
You know it. If you know it.
Everybody
if
loves
you've
that
driven by
house.
it.
Everybody loves it.
I don't
Yeah.
mean to interject this, but just an FYI, I had several bids on my park strip for artificial turf, and it was $12,000. I'm just talking my park strip. I'm not talking my whole front yard. And then on rock, it came to $6,000. So it's about half.
All right. So we'll talk more with Chris about do we put something in for TI now? Do we wait and see kind of where they're at? I had a conversation with TI. It's probably been 2 months at this point, and I haven't heard anything from them since. And the sign is down on their property. I don't know if they removed it. I don't know if somebody else removed it. I don't know if the wind blew away. But Rob told me the sign is gone.
So do we own
At
a
one
property in
point, one of
Lehigh?
the signs was down, but this wind had just blown it, and they put it back up, or
Oh,
somebody
okay.
put it back up.
Okay,
It
recently.
had just come off of the stakes.
Got it.
But I haven't noticed in the last 3 or 4 days. It could be that they've taken it down in that period of time.
Rob mentioned to me that it had, and I hadn't driven that direction recently.
But they've not scheduled a planning commission meeting?
No, I had a very candid conversation with Stan Lockhart about all of the things that we felt like we needed before Planning Commission could consider and give a recommendation before City Council. And so he said, yep, I understand. I'll get all of those things to you. And I haven't heard from them since.
Okay.
We need an information meeting in Highland, in this room, if necessary, that they're welcome to conduct it, in my opinion, but I don't know what made them think they could do it in American Fork.
All right. Third question is building security improvements. So we've talked about this a couple of times, most recently in closed session to discuss some possible security improvements. I did budget for $100,000 for that, so it's less than what we had talked about. I'm working to get additional bids and additional thoughts on how can we improve some safety without spending so much, be effective with the money and efficient with the money. And so had a couple of conversations. I'd like to do some more. Again, this is not, if council chooses to fund this, this is not me saying I'm going to go and do it. It's to continue the conversation, and it would come back to council for approval before any action would be taken.
And just so you know, I did ask Aaron to keep this here. I have some strong thoughts about it that I'm happy to talk to anybody about later.
So I would like to see it itemized a little bit, though. So I took a check from the Highland Foundation over to the police department for their new dog, and I thought it was pretty close to Fort Knox over there. I'm not sure if we need to put more security there.
Oh, yeah.
But in the city offices, I think you can make some arguments.
Yep. No,
depending on how the design and things go.
Absolutely. And we want to do a design that's still open and welcoming, as we've talked about, right? But yeah, none of that money was intended to go to the police department. I think they're well protected at this point.
Yeah, I was impressed how thick their glass was. I thought, wow.
The other piece of, the other item that's in the budget that I wanted to call your attention to is some traffic monitoring software. So it's, we talked about it briefly at least a council meeting ago, the idea of using GPS, right, mass aggregate it so that we can easily get data on traffic volume, traffic speeds, things like that. There will be a presentation to City Council next Tuesday from a vendor. It's not necessarily the vendor that we're set on going with, but it would be one to give you a bit more information about some possibilities that are out there. And again, if you choose to put it in the budget, we would ask for formal approval before pursuing it.
Does any of this include pedestrian traffic? Because if we learned, I mean, we've learned a lot from the residents on Canal Boulevard / Madison Avenue, and their argument is sound. It is extremely valid that we cannot make decisions about roads and traffic calming just based on traffic information. We've got to look at pedestrian traffic in terms of what crosswalks need bullards out and protection. So do we have anything that will give us pedestrian information?
I haven't seen anything. I know that we have some trail counters, but they don't work really well with sidewalks because it will pick up vehicle traffic. So I haven't seen any software that is really good at doing pedestrian counts. But we can see if there's something out there.
I hope we look for something, because I do believe it needs to be a metric that we look at anytime we make decisions on traffic calming. It's got to be both traffic and pedestrian traffic.
And then, because this is your budget, of course, Mayor and Council, any other changes that you want to see in there, I just kind of have that as a note.
The other one, right?
Yes, so
Okay.
I've got that listed. I'll have to talk to Chris more in detail about what would that look like, what would make sense there. All right, highlight some next steps. Jay, do you want to? Oh, sorry.
We had a blink there. Councilwoman Rodeau's just showing me something.
Oh, yes.
I just like to throw this in. With the drought conditions and the things we have to do, the city pressurized system comes on tomorrow. Is that right? The 15th?
It's already, the water is loaded, but.
Okay, the water's loaded. So we had a lot of discussion last year. Unfortunately, we've had some moisture recently. We're still going to be in kind of a water situation. But I would strongly recommend that we spend a lot on trees. And I think if we do get into a point on the city where we need to kind of prioritize, I think what we need to do is find a way to preserve and keep our trees alive, because there's a lot of dead trees going up the Alpine Highway and throughout the city. So, we spend $500 to $1,000 on a tree, it seems like. And I think if we do have to restrict water, we need to be sure that we keep our trees alive, if nothing else. Does that make sense? And I just want to make another comment, and this is kind of off of the budgetary, but we had a talk about this last year about keeping the city looking nice. But I have bought trees from the Arbor Day sale that the city sponsors many times, but we've got, a couple dozen trees that are dead over in there. Why didn't we plant those somewhere rather than just let them die? I look at them every time I come to city council, and I thought, why do we let all those trees sit there and die? So it's kind of hard, I think, as a city, and Chris, and you're kind of over this, but I think we need to maintain what we have, and especially and do what we can to preserve it. And I know it's hard in dry years, but fortunately there's been a little more moisture up there. Does that make sense? I don't know.
So, and I'm piggybacking a little bit on Scott's, going to a drip system around the trees. I'm just wondering if we could see how much that would cost us to change that rather than, the full spray irrigation through PI systems. I have no idea what we're talking as far as money, but rather put the drip system around that. I don't know if it's even feasible, but.
I know that there's drips when we have park strips that are like gravel, right, with, some plants, we have more of a drip system, but like if it's in the middle of a park, it's just is watered by our big sprinkler head.
Okay.
I'd say on the Arbor Day tree sale, for the past 2 years, we've had a lot less attendance than we have in historical years. So this year we're actually maybe already sent out a postcard. I can't remember. When is the tree sale?
It's usually the last part of April, first part of May. And I bought trees there. They've been great trees. But it just bugged me that they just sat there.
No, absolutely. And the intention always is whatever we don't sell that we plant. But the past couple of years, there's been a lot more trees than we are used to normally planting. And I'm not using it as an excuse. You're right. We need to do better, Scott, and get those planted so that they don't just waste.
Yeah.
But we're making some renewed efforts to really try to encourage people to come to the Arbor Day tree sale, because honestly, the last 2 years, it really hasn't been worth it for us to do it anymore. So this is kind of a year where we're going to see what really happens, and then we'll come back and have a conversation with council. So, but really trying to communicate it.
To Aaron's credit, I asked that be kind of cleaned up, or Chris, or whoever did it, and you guys did. And I think it looks a lot better than it did.
I was going to say, we did get some of them planted, but certainly not all of them. So. Okay.
And that's a little thing, but it makes a big difference in how the city looks.
Well, especially when it's right by City Hall, right?
Absolutely.
It matters. All right, sir.
All right, I'll go over quickly what we have coming up here. Following this meeting over the next week or so, we would like to meet, Aaron and I would like to meet with individual council members to discuss budget priorities, their thoughts on this tentative budget that we presented tonight, and get some further guidance on that. In order for us to, because a component of our budget is the Lone Peak budget, we need to have that nailed down. So the plan is to have on Tuesday, April 21st, approval of the Lone Peak tentative budget, which will then inform the Highland City budget. On Wednesday, April 29th, we will have a budget work session that will involve not only the Lone Peak budget, but also further direction that we've received from council members in individual meetings. So during that work session, we will further refine the budget, and then on May 5th will be the plan to have the public hearing and adoption of the Highland tentative budget.
Did you do that last
Wednesday, May 13th will be this Highland City open house. It's a great opportunity for us to have like a resident budget, which is something, or the citizen budget, which has been a very popular thing in the past, and also do some of perhaps some of the messaging that we feel like we might need to do, some of this education. I know Councilmember Rice was talking about trying to educate people about the need for a library property tax increase, or at least educate them about, what we're dealing with here, and the fact that we haven't raised property taxes in so long. We might need to look at considering it might be time. Tuesday, June 16th will be the final budget adoption, and that because there's a state imposed deadline, and then a truth in taxation hearing would be needed August 18th if that is the route that we need to go.
If we adopt the budget as drafted here, we would not be holding the final budget adoption on the 16th, would we? Because doesn't that get pushed until August?
They call it something different, yes, if you're doing truth in taxation. I don't remember the exact term. But
We still have an approval at that point, it's just, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the kind of sort of budget, so technical term.
That's what you get to look forward to. And just kind of as a reminder, June is, I mean, we're into heavy budget season, but June is a heavy budget meeting where you'll be approving final budget adjustments for this year. And then we have multiple approvals that will need to happen for the current fiscal year, or sorry, the future fiscal year. So the tax rate, or to Doug's point, right, acceptance of the current rate, or an approval for a potential increase, right, setting that truth in taxation deadline. We'll approve the fee schedule. If council chooses to do an enterprise fund transfer, we normally transfer money from PI to general fund to pay for the city's watering of the parks. City officer compensation changes, so any increases that you do to kind of our executive level staff has to have a separate public hearing. And then the final budget itself. So it's quite a heavy budget meeting.
That last one, isn't that the fiscal year 2026, 27?
Dang it. And I didn't correct the top one either.
The tentative budget for that year.
That's what happens when you use a template.
Well, it's always confusing when we're on fiscal and not calendar years.
Yeah, right. So this should be fiscal year 26 final and fiscal year 27 budget. So, well, there we go. Jay's going to fix it for us.
The fiscal or physical year.
Physical. He tried so hard. All right. And with that, any other questions, or are we done talking about budget for the evening?
If nothing else, we're done.
I
That's
move
all I
we
have,
adjourn.
Madam Mayor.
I second.
Aye. We're adjourned.